Welcome to Combat Sports Talk, a podcast dedicated to UFC and Bellator discussion, the MMA community, and combat sports in general. I'm your host, Ryan Smith, and joining me tonight is the entire Combat Sports Talk crew. I've got John Keys, I've got George G-Money Stallworth, and if he can get his technical difficulties fixed, we will have KC Onyebuchi, all on one show. This show is going to go as long as we need to be able to deliver to you what's going on about UFC 229, what happened, what was the fallout, how did we get there, everything you wanted to know. What's up, guys? Are you guys ready to do this?
Let's do it. Let's do it.
I am ready to get all this off my chest.
All right, we got a lot to talk about. It's all about UFC 229, Khabib versus McGregor in the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. There was electricity when those two fighters walked into the ring. But before we get into that, we have to start off with the official decision.
The official decision.
This is the official decision. This is where we look at the fights that happened on Saturday night. Now, it would be easy to say that none other fight mattered than the main event, but that would be a lie. There were 4 other great fights, starting off with Michelle Waterson, who defeated Felice Herring via unanimous decision. I had Felice Herring. I thought she was going to be able to use her strength to be able to push Michelle Waterson around, but exquisite Muay Thai was on display that night. George, what did you think about that fight?
I thought it was a wonderful display of excellence on Michelle's part, man. She just dismantled Felice from beginning to end. Good look out on the judges for the decision. It was unanimous. I mean, what more could you ask for? The opening of 229.
All right. John, what'd you think?
Definitely set the pace for the night. I had Felice Herrick as well. I thought she was going to use her strength to pretty much, bully Michelle Waterson around. But she came in there with not only excellent Muay Thai, but she came in with very technical skills. I underestimated her in this match. I deserve all the crow wings that I can eat.
All right. I'm not going to get you for that one, though. Next fight of the night, Derek Lewis defeated the Black Beast, defeated Alexander Drago Volkov via knockout with only seconds remaining. This was the thing, and we have the live event, so if you haven't heard us do the live event, George and I go to the fights, we watch the fights, and we give our live reactions for each one of the rounds. This is one where I was super confident that Alexander Volkov, simply because he was a Russian, and rule number 1, never bet against the Russians. I had Alexander Volkov in that fight. He was 14 seconds away from proving me right, and then the lunchbox happened. John, were you seeing that? Did you see that coming?
No, I did not. I mean, because you saw Derek. He was gassed out. He was just standing there trying to catch his breath. But every now and then he would launch something. Okay, launch it right into Volkov, be it into his chest or wherever. But that last, 449, he launched it right in his face, and he went down, and I lost my Wait, can I say that?
It's fine. We got lots of stuff to bleep out tonight. No worries.
Okay, all right. Well, yeah, I lost it. He got separated from his conscience pretty quickly. So, yeah, this was out of control.
George, you had a whole bunch of I told you so for that one. If you go out to the Instagram page, I see you lean back with your arms behind your head like, I got another one right.
Man, this actually was probably, there were some great fights on this card, but this is one of my favorite fights, and it just made me feel so much better that everybody at the table was picking Volkov. Everybody wanted the Russian. Everybody said he was going to win it. And I told y'all, I said, Derek is the king of the third round combat. And sure enough, 10 seconds left in the fight, drops his man to the mat. What more could you ask for? I looked at each of y'all and I was like, I told you. And hey, if you hadn't already, go check out that man's Instagram. I think he picked up almost, 50,000 followers over a over a 3-round fight.
Yeah, he doubled his followers after that fight. That was crazy. Have you seen?
He's got one of the most
go ahead.
Interesting Instagram profiles out there right now. I check him out every day, man, because he posts some very interesting stuff. Go check him out.
Yeah, it's easily the funniest, most hilarious Instagram post that's out there. I strongly suggest it. I was one of those 50,000 that joined on to him. Haven't regretted it since.
I don't know.
Matt,
I've
did you
seen
see
a couple
his post-fight interview?
Oh, we got
Yeah.
KC. We got
Oh,
KC.
yeah. Surprise!
What's up, KC?
No, every
my
now and again,
goodness.
I'm on Derek's Instagram, and he'll just post something. I'm like, I gotta delete the internet. Like, this is just too much.
That's the good stuff right there.
So George, you
Oh,
wanted
yeah.
to comment on his post-fight after he took his pants off?
Yes, the man took his pants off in the ring. I think there was another interview where someone spoke with him about one of the UFC officials or one of the commission officials came to him and said, "Hey, you got to put your pants back on." And basically Derek said, "I looked at this little short man and walked off and finished my interview with Joe."
Yeah, because the official did walk up to him and was like, "Yeah, put your pants back on." And he kind of looked at him strange, but he started doing it. But I was like,
Yeah.
I couldn't understand why he took his pants off.
Well,
according
because
to
it made
his
the
post-fight
absolute
interview.
best post-fight interview. Man, that was the best I've seen.
let's just say that he said, and of course this is Derek Lewis talking, he said that I can't say what he said, but just think about if normally that happens when he's with the female, is why he took his pants off.
Oh my goodness!
Oh, he had an O.
Yes, that.
Yes, he said he was so excited from the knockout that he actually had an O.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah,
There it is.
yes.
Best way you put it. The best way.
I can't unknow that.
Let's speaking of O.
Well, before you go there, I want to address that. So, how does taking your pants off make that better?
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is the podcast, aka the hot mess. So here we are.
Let's all look. It's a hot mess. Let's all take our pants off right now.
I'm not gonna lie. I haven't had my pants on in like the last 15 minutes.
Let's go
I'm
on.
kind of like that right now, dude. I ain't gonna lie. I'm in my robe. I'm Hugh Hefner in it right now. You know.
All right. Oh my gosh.
I'm
Okay,
comfortable.
Dominic Reyes, newcomer to the UFC, outside of the top 10, but not anymore. Defeated Vince St. Preux via unanimous decision, but we all know that was a knockout. We all know it was.
Oh,
George,
my goodness.
Did knockout or unanimous decision? Shouldn't they given that man the knockout?
He definitely deserved a knockout call on that. I don't know what was going on with the ref at that point. I think it was Dan Mergliotta, and he actually told OSP, "You got to get up. Like, the fight's not over." I don't know where Dan's head was as far as the timing of the fight and why he didn't hear the bell, but that was definitely a knockout. And OSP fell down backwards. Like, you know, those are the dangerous ones, because when you fall backwards like that, you're more prone to injure your knee because you're in this weird position. You don't know how your legs are going to land or anything like that. So, yeah, that definitely was a knockout.
John, what was going on with OSP? I mean, dude looked listless. Like, he came out, hardly threw any punches in the first round or the second. He came out throwing bombs in the third, but it was way too late. What do you think was wrong with him?
You know, I've been searching the internet trying to gather intel on what happened with him. Only thing I can think of is just some days you just get out of bed and you just look around. You're like, you know what? I don't feel it right now. And I don't think he really felt the first two rounds. Third round, he was like, okay, I think I'm here now. But I don't think he was really feeling that fight. And I can understand why, because Reyes was there, okay? And Reyes was not playing with him, okay? So,
You know, Ryan, you and I kind of talked about this before the fight card, just kind of on a separate chat. This notion that OSP is prone to slow starts, and I was trying to figure out, is his win streak, like, is he progressing as a fighter, or is he just fighting no ones? And I wanted to believe that he was progressing as a fighter, but it just really doesn't seem that way.
So, George, do you think that this makes OSP a gatekeeper? Has he achieved gatekeeper status at this point?
Yeah, I'm afraid so. I mean, when you look at that division and who he's faced in there and who he hasn't faced yet, you know, he's the guy that's keeping some people from facing those top 5, and he's not likely to get a title shot himself. He's fought John Jones already. I don't see him contending for that title right now. I can't recall some of the other fights he's had, but I'm looking at him as a gatekeeper right now. He's going to have to really do something to change that halo over his head.
Yeah, I agree. Tony Ferguson defeated Anthony Pettis via corner stoppage in the second round. I am so glad that El Kukui is back. This is the guy that needs to be the next man up for the lightweight title. He is the interim champion. He was wrongly stripped of his title. I am just, let me just say, I'm so glad Tony Ferguson, El Kukui, is back. He defeated Showtime Anthony Pettis via corner stoppage, a broken hand in round 2. Here's the question that I have for you, George. The corner stopped the fight. This is something that's uncommon, because when we were talking about Raquel Pennington and how she said that she was done when she fought Chris Cyborg, and her corner urged her on. In this one, Anthony Pettis had a broken hand. His corner said, "We're done. We're not pushing you any farther." What are your thoughts about how the corner handled that situation?
I think that was very savvy of his corner. They're looking out for the fighter, number one. Duke Rufus, he really had to question himself. How much more can Anthony go out here and do against this guy right now? I mean, when you look at that fight, it was a bloody fight. And at the beginning, when the blood, letting started, I thought it was Tony Ferguson who was bleeding that badly. Between the rounds, I think they cleaned him up, or the ref stopped the fight for a minute to clean him up. And that also changed the momentum of that fight if you go back and look at it, because up until that point, Anthony Pettis was kind of dominating that fight. They stopped the fight, towed them off, fight resumed, and all of a sudden that momentum that Tony had started to shift. But I think Duke Rufus made a great call in saying, hey, we're done here. He's protecting his fighter. He knows his fighter better than anyone else. He trains this guy. He spent more time with this guy than he probably spends with his own parents. So I think it was a great call on Duke's part. I hate to see it. You hear some fighters, I fought with a broken hand, things like that. But live to fight another day, in my opinion. I know Tony's had some hand injuries before, so it's not the first time. I think Duke made the right call.
All right, George. Here's the question.
Yeah.
Not George. John. Here's the question I have for you. In watching this fight, Anthony Pettis absolutely was doing his very best to test that knee that Tony Ferguson had that Tony Ferguson was healing from. What did you think about the use of attacking the knee as a strategy? Do you feel like that was underhanded, or do you think that that's just part of the game?
That's part of the game. From the first low kick that Pettis threw, you heard it hit his knee, and you saw that he was limping for a little bit afterwards. As far as I'm concerned, and I think I've said this many times, when you walk into that cage, okay, you're saying that you are 100%, you're ready to fight. Okay, if you go in there with anything broken, anything sprained, anything, okay, you went in there knowing what you were about to do, and you can't use it as an excuse. So, I mean, I talk bad about Ferguson sometimes. I think he's a little loopy, but those two fighters gained all sorts of respect because they went in there crazed and willing to put it all on the line. There were two warriors in that ring. My hat off to Tony Ferguson. Afterwards, when he was at the post-press conference, I'm going to ignore that because he was once again on that loopy trip. But anyway, yes.
KC.
It was all fair game.
KC, does Tony Ferguson deserve the next title shot?
Nope. Because if that fight, if Anthony Pettis hadn't broken his hand, I really think Pettis was taking it to it. Like, beyond all the amazing Showtime stuff with busting out capoeira, like, Pettis was really dominating. And I think that toweling off was a transition point in the an inflection point in the fight. But is that to say that Ferguson isn't one of the most dominant ever and that he's not on the right track? No, but Pettis looked amazing, and I don't know that we can say that if that fight had continued on, that Ferguson really would have won that.
I don't know. All I know is that Anthony Pettis was bleeding from his scalp. He was bleeding from his eye. It was only going to get worse in the third round. But
did you see how explosive he was with all of that blood and everything, the damage that was taking? His explosiveness never changed throughout the fight.
It was unsustainable. You know,
his name look bad. Come on now.
It's unsustainable. You can't have that explosiveness as that he was doing. He was fighting because he was hurt. He was fighting because he was
I gotta disagree with you. Oh my goodness. We didn't even know who was bleeding for sure. And Anthony was lighting Tony up. I mean, I thought that blood was Tony's.
Same.
In my opinion, Anthony Pettis was winning that fight up until the wipe down. Wipe me down.
Yes, but that was in the middle. That was in the middle of the of what was it? The middle of the second round. And then
I'm just saying it really set the tone after that for them to take that time off. You killed his momentum. You see what I'm saying? When you're in there and your momentum's up and you're winning something like that, man. What's that saying? It's hard to stop something that's in action already.
Like inertia?
And because y'all stopped inertia. You stopped the action. You allowed, one, Tony Ferguson some recovery time. Two, while you got the doctors in checking me out, I'm the one who's just dominating this fight. Like, no, I want to continue on.
Recovery time is huge, too, because Ferguson had taken some shots. Like, that recovery time made a difference.
Yeah, he did. But the fact is that the fight turned, and Tony had the momentum at that point. Tony was by the end of the second
Tony
round,
had help from the referee.
You know what?
This is the equivalent of Soldier of God sitting longer on the stool and pretending like he didn't know. Like
no, because no. Okay, so for those of you who aren't following along, Yoel Romero was fighting Tim Kennedy. Tim Kennedy rocked Yoel Romero at the end of the second round. Yoel Romero was still stunned by the end of the break. It's a 1-minute break between rounds. But what Yoel Romero did was sit on the stool longer. And he got maybe another 15, maybe 30 seconds of time before they actually engaged in the fight. In the third round, Yoel Romero, having had recovered, knocked Tim Kennedy out cold.
Don't forget Jesus.
Don't forget Jesus. The Yoel Romero, that was illegal. What Tony Ferguson did was not illegal. We're not going to equate those two.
False equivalency there. But say that the timing, it favored one fighter over the other.
It may have favored Tony Ferguson. I'm not going to dispute that because the tide definitely changed at that point. Tony Ferguson started landing punches. I think that it would have gone on to the third. And Tony Ferguson still would have won. Don't question me on this. El Kukui is the greatest.
That's the way you end that.
All right, let's go on to the...
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event of the evening.
All right, this is what we are here for. We're going to talk about Khabib Nurmagomedov. We're going to talk about Conor McGregor. Khabib Nurmagomedov defeated Conor McGregor via submission in round 4 via a neck crank. This was an amazing fight. Tell me, just... We'll start with you, John. We'll go to George, and then finish up with KC. What was your reaction on the fight? Go.
Abusive, and justice was served. That's all.
Wow, it's the first time I've ever heard you be brief. That's awesome.
Sneak dissing. I like that. Yeah.
George,
okay.
Your thoughts on this fight?
I was impressed by both fighters. Conventional wisdom said, yes, Khabib is going to win this fight, Khabib. But what I was impressed with Conor was that, one, takedown defense. Yeah. Two, when he was down, he remained calm, collected. He stayed within his wits. And instead of just automatically trying to get up, which is the mistake many fighters make with Khabib, they're constantly pushing, trying to get up. They're expending energy. Conor remained calm, He looked for the opportunities. If he could, he could. If he couldn't, he couldn't. He just didn't worry about it. In fact, I think Kavanaugh even talked about that was part of the game plan, was do not waste energy trying to get up. Take those losses in the rounds. We're looking for a knockout.
KC.
Yeah, I think overall it went the way a lot of people expected with the wrestling. Where I saw it deviate a little bit is the hand-to-hand exchange when they're standing up. You can see that Khabib got a little too confident and wanted to stand and bang for a bit. And I hope it was someone in his corner who reminded him of the strategy to just get back and do what you're good at. But the fact that Conor wasn't fighting a much smaller fighter who truly didn't have a glass chin, I think changed the game a little bit for him. Where I did see the big knockdown that Khabib landed, it was actually probably a troublesome spot because he wanted to stand and trade for a few more exchanges beyond that. And you could see that Conor had nailed down his timing. So Khabib going back to where he was and not being goaded into just standing up and banging with McGregor was a smart idea. And I love the result.
John, I'm going to come back to you. I'm going to come back to you real quick. Did you know that Conor McGregor did something that no other fighter has ever done? And that is win a round.
One round against
Khabib Nurmagomedov. What are your thoughts on that?
Khabib.
You know, it just because you win one round does not mean you win the entire match. Yes, it's monumental that he will forever be known as the first guy to ever take a round from Khabib. But that doesn't stop the full match. I mean, it was a good match. You know, Khabib did deviate from the game plan a couple of times. If I remember listening to the corner in between rounds, they were telling him, "Stay to your plan. Stick to your father's plan." Okay, but I think there was a lot of emotion running in there, which I know we'll address later on. But it was a good match. You know, good hats off to Conor McGregor for taking that round. But in the end, justice was served in spades.
I didn't think that he had won a round. I can't believe it was round 3, by the way, that he won. I didn't think he'd won a round. I'm like looking at going, really? Like when I was talking to a friend of mine, he's like, yeah, he won round 3. I was like, show me those cards, because I don't believe it. And sure enough, he won round 3 on all 3 judges' cards. That was crazy. All right.
I think it's. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, because I'm getting ready to go on. So if you got something.
I think it was. Yeah, I was going to say, I think the reason why he won that round was because they didn't adopt the new rules. They were still going by the old rules, and somewhere within that old rules, that's where he won on technicality. But that's all I got.
All right. So let's close the book on this one. You know we're going to open it right back up, but we got to make our transition to our next segment. It's going to be real quick, and then we are going to get into all of the details of what happened after the fight. Here we go. We got trains in the station. Let's go ahead and do the hype train.
The hype train.
All right, this is the hype train. This is where we get on the bandwagons of the fighters that had good nights on Saturday night. We got 3 people. We've already talked about the hype train for Khabib Nurmagomedov, so we're not even going to address him. But Michelle Watterson, let's go around the table. Are you on Michelle Watterson's hype train? Starting with you, George. Go.
Absolutely, I've been on her hype train, man. This woman has only had 3 losses in the past couple of years, and 2 of those losses were like Tisha Torres and Rose Namajunas, who's the current champ. Definitely on a hype train, man. Wondering what her path to a title shot is, but definitely on that hype train.
All right. John.
Yes, I've always been a fan of Michelle Watterson. This match against Herrick was the first time that I actually went against her. Okay, so with that said, that's my mistake. I'm on the train, and I got a shirt.
All right. KC.
Yeah, she's with a good camp, and I think she's got a lot of upside to her. So it's hard not to root for her.
I was supremely impressed. I'm on the hype train as well. That was expert fighting there. Next one on the list, Derek the Black Beast Lewis. KC.
I mean, if he gets his cardio up, like he says he knows he needs to, then I think he's going to be a terror for the heavyweight. So yeah, I'll jump on that train.
All right, John.
Yeah, he's still got some ways to go, but he's impressed me enough to say yes. And just on his Instagram alone, I'll be on his hype train.
George?
Not only I'm the conductor on that hype train. Woo! I'm asking all of you for your tickets. I mean, what else could you want from him, man? I think his recent losses were Mark Hunt, and then I think Matt Mitrione beat him back in the day. Like, he's another one, though. I'm really concerned about his path to a title shot, man. When you look at that division, what are we going to do there? But we'll talk about that later.
All right. As for me, I'm not on that hype train. I am not. He's funny.
What?
He's funny. Yeah, he knocks folks out, but I'm not on that hype train. I can't take Derek Lewis seriously. Not when you got Curtis Blades in that division. Like he faced Curtis Blades, he's going to get cut up. Derek Lewis is not. He's not ready for prime time. He's a big fighter. He can knock folks out, but I don't see him beating Daniel Cormier. I don't see him beating Stipe Miocic. I don't see him beating Curtis Blades. I mean, he barely.
I need to
beat
back
Francis
you up and really talk you through this again, Ryan. We had this conversation the other night when you were like, "There's no way that I'm betting against the Russian," and I told you, King of the third round comeback, King. But I'm gonna give you some other stats about Derek the Black Beast. Why you should be on his hype train. This is like his third performance of the night bonus. I think he's got like 2 fight of the night bonuses. Knocked out Travis Brown and then called out Ronda Rousey. Oh, come on, man. How can you not be on his hype train?
I love him. He's a great fighter, but I'm not going to be on his hype train. I mean, come on. If your claim to fame is that you knocked out Travis Brown, question is, who didn't? Like, Alistair Overeem's like the only guy. The other thing is, having a lot of fight night bonuses. I mean, Joe Lozon is the king of the fight night bonus. He never got a title shot. So, I mean, it's just one of those things where I can appreciate him. He is hilarious. He's got a great Instagram. There's a lot of things going for him. But when I take him, can I take him legitimately, seriously as a title contender? The answer is no. No.
I think you're a little sore about that 14 seconds before the end of the round when he clipped your boy and put him out.
That's a bit salty there, man. I think
You know what? I don't like y'all tonight. I'm getting ready to just turn this off. I'm hitting hang up on y'all.
I feel like I really enjoy this, like all of us together, because that way Ryan can't just bulldoze over my points anymore.
All right, last one, and then we'll get to the whole aftermath of UFC 229. Dominic Reyes, this guy. Anybody? Okay, we'll start with you, John. What do you think?
Looks good. Fight's good. Not there yet. I need to see him against somebody else serious. He's got to fight 2 serious opponents before I say, okay, he's worth the time. Sorry.
George.
He impressed the hell out of me, man. One, he went against a great gatekeeper in OSP. I had OSP picked to win this fight. I had no idea who Dominic was before. Didn't know much about him. And I actually like what I saw, man. His stand-up is pretty nice. And he's a big boy. What more could you ask for in that, man? I can't wait to see him in action again. I'd like to see him in another stand-up match. I want to see him fight some other kickboxers.
All right, Casey.
Yeah, to me, it comes down to whether or not he's going to be marketable for the UFC. And I think he probably is going to be. So he's going to find his path to the championship.
I am on the Dominic Reyes hype train. I punched my ticket. I am there. I thought that OSP was going to trash him, and when he came out and just went to work, he threw 61, landed 61 strikes against OSP in the first round. Yes, he still got to work on that cardio because his output decreased over time, but I like the way he started. He came in there, asked for OSP, and got OSP, and then went after him. His next fight, he asked for Jan Blachowicz. I think that's a great fight because Jan Blachowicz is also on a like 4-fight win streak. So I mean, he's got a good sights on how he wants to go. I predict that this guy will be fighting John Jones for the title at some point. So I am on this hype train. This is my dark horse in the light heavyweight division. All right. All the trains have left the station. There is one last thing for us to do, and that is to make sense of the insanity that was UFC 229 main events melee. This is Finding the Angles.
Finding the Angles.
This is Finding the Angles. This is where we usually dedicate all the headlines and all the stories that are coming out of the weekend of fights. But there is only one headline. This has overshadowed the main event, which was a wonderful exhibition of mixed martial arts. This was the comeuppance of Conor McGregor. This was the validation of Khabib Nurmagomedov, all ruined because this dude, Khabib Nurmagomedov, jumped over the fence and attacked somebody in the crowd. And now nobody, like, I got to work today and nobody's talking about, oh, did you see Khabib defeated Conor McGregor? It was, what happened? Why did he jump over the fence? Completely overshadowed the outstanding event. So let's go into this. Let's talk about it. So I thought that what we should do is, for anybody who doesn't know, let's start from the beginning. And I'm calling the beginning the Artem Lobov interview. So we'll talk about who Artem Lobov is, and we'll talk about the interview. So does anybody want to start back further than that?
No, that's a great point. That's a great place to start. Well, let's make one little side note, okay? That Conor and Khabib were actually friends, and Khabib was a fan of Conor McGregor all the way up to the Artem Lobov incident.
Okay. All right, so
that's the only one I got.
Who is Artem Lobov? Artem Lobov is one of Conor McGregor's best friends. He was born in Russia. He's a Chechnyan who moved to Ireland, became an Irish citizen, and then trains at Conor McGregor's camp. Okay? So, because of the relationship between Conor McGregor, who moved up to 155, and Khabib, who was working his way up the ladder, there became an interest in seeing Conor McGregor versus Khabib. And so the trash talk began to kind of bubble up at this point where Artem Lobov began to talk trash about Khabib on video. He basically calls Khabib a chicken, comments on how he pulls out of fights because Khabib had a stint of missing weight and he was injured and things like that. Said that Khabib has disrespected the Russian fans and that Conor is the true champion, all of which were disrespectful. So I guess the first thing is, for George, your thoughts on this, that Artem Lobov talking trash. Does this warrant a response?
No, not a response in the sense of okay. Yes, Khabib has every right to respond to what he said and things like that. Do I think Khabib should have hunted him down, surrounded him with a group of men, and slapped him upside the head like he's a child? No.
Okay.
I'm gonna defer just a bit on that, because to characterize it as Khabib went with his whole gang to go search out Artem over this, it's a little bit of a miscategorization. I can't say that, but
miscategorization.
There it is. Because when he walks up on Artem, we have to remember that it's in the context of fighters making weight. Like, so you've got your crew with you in this hotel. It's not like they went out and sought this guy. These two run up across each other. Khabib happens to have his team. I don't think he went saying, "Yo, gang, let's get the whole crew together and ride on this dude." No, you walked across.
We don't know that. We weren't there.
Well, the cameras were there, and the cameras clearly show that Khabib had already had his team together after they were doing the weight cut stuff. So it's not like he gathered his forces.
I can't speak with true clarity on this, but I think this exchange took place like in a hallway or somewhere.
Yeah.
Headed towards some elevators, and I don't know. Like I said, to me, it felt very bullish. Like, you know, if I was in Artem's shoes and I'm there alone, I didn't see anybody with Artem per se.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? And that's the part of it. It's like Khabib being man to man, and I can see Khabib doing this, walking up and saying, "Hey, I need to speak to you for a minute," and pull me to the side, hey, and discuss whatever issue you got with me. You didn't like what I said, so you know that's different.
Yeah, but
you and an entourage of your guys, regardless of the purpose or intent of what y'all were there for, I'm still feeling threatened. I've been encircled. I'm cornered off. I'm against this wall, and you put hands on. You slap me like somebody's child, like I'm your child.
Yeah, I'll give you that. Yeah.
So this took place in the hallway at UFC Brooklyn. This was the event, UFC 223, where once this video of Khabib approaching Artem Lobov in the hall, he's saying to him, "Call me chicken to my face." And Lobov was like, I didn't call you a chicken. He's like, "Call me something else to my face." And he's like, "I never said any of that." Khabib warns Lobov, "Keep my name out of your mouth." Then Khabib's team posted to Instagram, "If you say crap, you have to answer for it." He's like a man who couldn't answer for his words. This is when Conor McGregor gets the phone call, "Your boy got hemmed up in the hallway by Khabib and his crew." Conor gets 20 of his friends, charters a jet, flies from Ireland to Brooklyn, and they ambush Khabib as he's coming on the way back from press interviews. Basically, Conor got access to secure places at the Barclays Center by an employee of the Mac Life, which is Conor's media company who does like those short documentaries on Conor and his training and things like that. So because they have a press pass and access to behind the scenes, Conor used his relationship and his ownership of this employee to gain access with him and his crew. They break into the Barclays loading dock looking for Nurmagomedov. We've all seen the video. Confrontation. Dolly goes through the window. It's crazy. So all this is going on. John, I want to turn to you. You know, does this all seem staged? As you go through Artem Lobov to Khabib to Conor, is this staged? Everybody's saying this was all staged.
Half of it was. Half of it was.
Okay.
Yes. All right. Now the whole Khabib Artem Lobov situation where he got hemmed up in the elevator. From what I know, they came upon him by accident. Whether that is true or not, the world may never know. Okay, but Khabib put his hands on him on like a man to a child and called him out. He did not, and Artem Lobov he out for lack of better words. Okay, Conor heard about this, and he gathered him and his homies, drank proper 12 all the way across the pond. Then nobody sat there and thought, man, I don't know if we should do this or not. No, they were all gassed up, got in there, and then, because we know Conor McGregor is the king of the mind games. That's what he did. He was playing mind games there. I don't think he meant the window to break when he threw that down. I guess he thought that that it wasn't real glass, and it wasn't going to do the damage that it did, because if you actually watch the video and really slow it down, he was picking and choosing things to throw. Okay, after he saw the dolly go through, he goes back to grab something else, and then he's like, no, let me grab something lighter, and threw that. So I think it from the way it looked to me, he was playing mind games there. However, you don't play mind games with that man, because he showed after the whole incident, the Dagestani Eagle sat there and showed a video, and he told him simply, "Tell me where you at. I will meet you there. Give me your location. We will meet there. Tell me what time." That's all you have to do. Look at his eyes. His eyes told the entire story. He was not playing with him, okay? He was not playing with him at all. He was going to roll up with his homie, and it was just going to be him and his homie versus whatever Conor McGregor was going to bring. And I think he was going to walk away from that one. Conor was not.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you a quick story. I'm going to be real quick, and then we'll continue breaking down how we got to this melee. The pay-per-view crew that I used to watch the fights with was much larger. There was a guy, his name was Mark. He was former Army. He may have actually been an Army Ranger. He would watch the fights with us, break down all the martial arts, and it was great. But there was this guy at the bar one night where we were watching the fights, and he kept just like bumping into Mark and stuff like that. And so Mark kind of turned to him and looked at him and was like, "Hey, I'm gonna need you to stop doing that." And the guy's like, "What are you gonna do about it?" And Mark's like, "You know what? You." And the guy was a little short guy too. Mark turns to him and says, "You know what? You're nice and brave. Want to come up to me and approach me and talk all tough in the middle of a bar where you can see police officers walking around." He's like, "But I'm going to tell you what, I'm going to invite you across the street to that dark field across there. Nobody has to know. You and me, we can walk out there. I guarantee you that if we walk out there, you and me, one of us is walking back, and it's not you." That guy looked into Mark's eyes, saw that he was not joking, and he left. He was like, "I'm done. I apologize, sir, for inconveniencing you," and he backed down.
You want some of this too, old man?
No. I mean, that's what it was. That's what it was. I mean, when Mark gave him that Khabib kind of response, and it was like, this man is serious. I don't know what he's bringing to this fight, but he is offering me an opportunity to walk into a dark field where I may not come back from. No, thank you, sir. I'll just sit right here and I'll be quiet. That's what Conor probably could have learned, but he didn't. So what do we have? Artem Lobov talking trash about Khabib on video. Khabib confronting Artem at UFC Brooklyn in the hallway. Whether he ran up him on accident or on purpose, we will never know, but it went on social media. Conor ambushed Khabib at the after a press conference and was charged with felony criminal mischief, misdemeanor assault, and menacing and reckless endangerment. Conor pleads guilty to these charges. He's basically given a misdemeanor slap on the wrist and
the light possible charge, which is a mockery of the judicial system.
So he appeared in front of Judge Raymond Rodriguez, pleaded guilty to a single violation of disorderly conduct. All the felony charges were dropped. So basically, he went from having multiple felonies, assault, and reckless endangerment to just disorderly conduct. And that gave him the green light to have the fight with Khabib. And the title fight was signed for October 6th, which was just this past Saturday.
So just to add a little more color to this, is that before or after he jumps into a Bellator fight and starts a melee there? Just to paint some character.
So this would have happened after the Bellator fight.
We've got a pattern. Okay, just checking.
Okay. Okay, so just for those of you who are playing along, we have to assume that there are some people who don't know all of the don't know all of the history here. So Conor McGregor had a friend who was fighting in a Bellator fight in the UK, I believe. The fighter won his fight, but the referee had not cleared the ring and called the fight as over. Conor jumps in before that happens and goes over and tackles his friend and celebrates, and the referee walks over and tries to get Conor out of the ring. He pushes Conor out of the way. Conor then retaliates, pushes him, and attacks the ref, yelling at him and all kinds of stuff. It was the commission. They come into the ring to try to stop all of this, and basically, rumor has it, allegedly, Conor threw some punches and hit some people. This all happened prior to the UFC 223 incident, and so this was another time where Conor did something outlandish. He did something that the normal human, the normal mortal man, if they had done, they would be locked down in chains forever. But Conor did not feel any repercussions from this because he was not a sanctioned fighter, because the governing body didn't have anything to do with it, and it was at a promotion that wasn't the UFC, so Dana White took no action. I know that's kind of where you were going, so we want to establish the fact that Conor got no penalty for having done that at the Bellator fight that night.
Yeah, just wanted to note that he has actually caused not just monetary but physical damage to other fighters and to bystanders outside of the ring. Like that's what I want to establish.
Wait. Physical damage? You mean at the UFC 223 event, right? Not at the Bellator event. He didn't hurt anybody at the Bellator event.
Well, he did strike someone, didn't he?
Yeah,
it was alleged. It was alleged. All we saw
was
he
kicked the referee.
He didn't kick the referee. He pushed the referee. He pushed the referee. He did not kick the
That counts. I mean, that's an assault.
Assault. Yeah.
And not only that, on a referee, this is someone who the commission has placed power and to control the fight, control the octagon, control the ceremonies, and this is the person who you chose to put hands on.
But
after you were wrong for entering the ring, you're not even supposed to be there.
Conor was not sanctioned by that body, so therefore they had no jurisdiction over him, so they could not do anything for him. Yeah. Okay, here we go. October 6th, the title fight gets signed.
You mean 6 October?
6 October, the title fight is signed. So this is sometime
Sydney location.
In yeah, I guess this happened sometime in the May time frame. I would assume. The title fight is signed for October 6th. Conor instantly gets dirty on Instagram. He posts a photo of Khabib's teammate Zubaira Tukhugov. And he says with the caption, "A true Chechen would never assist a Dagestani-led attack on another Chechen." So this is hearkening back to the confrontation between Khabib and Artem. McGregor wrote, "A true Chechen would never take orders from a Dagestani man. This is treason. There's no worse than treason." So let's break down why this is significant. I was doing some research. There was after the fall of the USSR, there was a battle for nation independence. Chechnya wanted their independence, and so they went into a war with the Russians. Their rebellion was quelled, but two other warlords, as their economy fell, took over and began a second war with Russia. The way they instigated this was they went over to neighboring Dagestan and attacked Dagestan and took over a part of the region. Dagestani police, with support from the Russian military, pushed the Chechens out of Dagestan. Since then, there has been a rivalry between the Chechens and the Dagestani people. That is something that has been going on for 20, 30 years. Okay? So, to call Zubaira Tukhugov a treasonous person to his native Chechnya because he is on Khabib's team and Khabib is from Dagestan, that right there is pulling the strings of the politics between these two nations that already represents a crossing of the line.
I agree. There are certain things you just don't do, and Conor didn't observe that rule. Okay.
So
once
yeah.
again,
Is it a hard and fast rule though? Like, what is off limits? And previous podcasts will show that I think all trash talking is ridiculous and shouldn't be in there. But at what point, if Conor is playing the psychological warfare, at what point is it actually crossing the line? If we know this is what Conor does, and he's never been punished before.
Okay, we're going to take a cue ultimately from The Professional. You remember the movie with with Natalie Portman and everything, Leon the Professional? No women, no kids. Okay, that's the base. All right, you don't talk about them. After that, pretty much, you just don't talk about family. Okay, you don't talk about things that you can't normally talk about in public. And the way that we are as a society right now, we can't talk about women, kids. We cannot talk about religion. We cannot talk about sex. We cannot talk about politics.
I feel
Leave
like
those 5 things alone, and you're good.
I think if
And it's also hypocritical of Conor.
Yeah.
Think about it.
Very.
Artem Lobov is his boy. Artem is Russian by birth. I think he I forget what his citizenship is now. But
Irish.
they could say the same thing back at him. It's like, why are you as a Chechenian over here kicking it with this Irish man who's fighting, who's basically going to war with Mother Russia?
Yeah.
Exactly.
The whole thing is just too problematic, and for Dana White to recuse himself and say, well, I'm not here to regulate people's conversations, it's a slap in the face. Like, come on, because he's regulated in the past, and to let this go to where it was, I don't think that it's out of bounds for any person, fighter or not. Like, there's certain things that have been said that can't be unsaid, that it's an attack on your character, it's an attack on your family. A response is needed.
So let's be clear though, that even the way this is worded, shows that Conor knew the political implications of what he was saying.
Yep.
This isn't like, my thing is this. Yes, I am all for kind of an expansive list of things that if you're going to trash talk against someone, you should have, your full arsenal ready to use. But you come out the gate dropping nuclear bombs like this. This is how it gets personal. This is how you don't just
go about promoting a fight. This was beyond the fight talk.
This isn't about the fight, right? This is about nationalism. This is about ethnicities. This isn't about I'm going to beat you because I'm a better fighter. This isn't even about I think you're weak. I think your punches are weak and you got a glass jaw. This isn't anything like that. This is I'm going to go straight for the jugular, and I'm going to accuse your teammate of being a treasonous person because he supported you as you confronted Artem Lobov. But it didn't stop there, because we made it to the first press conference, and Conor McGregor, who was releasing his Proper 12 whiskey, offered Khabib Nurmagomedov a drink of his whiskey, knowing that Khabib is Muslim and Muslims do not drink alcohol. This is something that he knew, and he's like, "Here, have a drink of my whiskey." And he's like, Khabib is like, "I can't. I don't drink. I don't drink." He's like, "Why not? Why don't you drink? Why don't you drink?" This again is an attack.
Whole religion backwards. Like, I don't know if it gets picked up on most of the videos, but he legitimately is casting aspersion on the Muslim faith. Like,
yes, he called him "you backwards expletive."
Yeah, that's a problem.
Serious problem.
So I want to go to you, George. How did Khabib respond to the attacks?
How did he respond to the attacks?
Yeah. Do you remember from the press conferences? Did he get up? Did he go?
Oh, I think he responded well. He was quiet in the press conferences. He remained poised. It came across to the public as though like he was being a punk about it, or I think the public's opinion of him was not just. I think the public saw that the public really wanted him to speak up and go back at Conor. They wanted that back and forth, and they didn't get that. And so because Khabib didn't engage, the public turned on him.
So we're still at that press conference, right? So McGregor went back to the ethnic tensions between Chechnya and Dagestan and continued the assault there. And then he highlighted everything by linking Khabib Nurmagomedov, who, I guess in his early days, had a relationship with an oil billionaire named Magomedov, who is currently under arrest by Vladimir Putin for embezzlement. And the challenge and the problem with that is that by linking Khabib Nurmagomedov as a benefactor to someone like Magomedov puts him at risk, because Vladimir Putin could then take action against Khabib. So let's just say in one press conference, he attacked the Muslim faith. He went back again at the Chechnya and Dagestani tensions culturally, and then he linked Khabib to Magomedov, and then accused Khabib of disrespecting Vladimir Putin for not taking a picture at the World Cup. So if you look at all of that right there, all of these things, if you understand the Russian culture, and if you, and I'm not saying that I'm an expert on Russian culture, trust me, but what I'm saying is if you do just a little bit of research, you know that Conor McGregor has taken the knife, he's plunged it deeply, and he is turning that thing counterclockwise.
Not just the Russian culture, too. There's also the religious implements that go to this, the Islamic faith and his Muslim roots. I mean, he's digging that knife in there on that as well.
Yep.
I mean, he was doing a job. I mean, he was doing a real number to try and get under Khabib. And because he knew he had to get him off his game, because Khabib has never made a joke, okay? As long as he's been in the UFC, as long as he's never made a real joke, okay? This man does not laugh a lot, all right? So he knew that he had to do something to get him off his kilter, okay? While the effort was A+, the execution of what he did, oh my God. And you got to understand, okay, with us all men here, all right, we all understand what happened, what really happened. Khabib stopped talking, okay? After at some point he was answering some question, and he was coming with logic. But at some point, he stopped talking. And he did what the Diaz brothers do, okay? At some point, all three of them got one thing in common. They will stop talking, and once they stop talking, you got three choices. Either you apologize, you walk away, or you be prepared to fight at that moment. And that's what that was Khabib's answer right there. I'm done talking. Talk is for lovers at this point, okay? I'm ready to fight.
My problem with the whole scenario is we kind of miss out on the antics because there's a lot of verbal sparring, but just even the physical presence with Conor trying to intimidate and acting like he's going to run over and fight Khabib. Khabib is 100% unflinching because it's all for show. Conor knows that there's too much security for anything to really happen. So I don't know why we keep buying into these acts like these fighters are going to fight, because there's way too much security for anything to ever happen for real beyond a single punch landed. So I think what Khabib showed beyond just his poise in that was just being a logical person. Just like, come on, like Conor's putting on a show. None of this is real. Like the personal attacks continued, but we all know that nothing could go down there. So why are we even doing this?
All right. So last thing that Conor said, and then we'll move on to the second presser. He called Khabib a hard man in groups, but on his own, when confronted, he cowers away. That's what you saw, that little blank on the bust. He blanked in his jocks. So he finished the presser off by calling Khabib a coward, which harkens back to what Artem Lobov originally said that got Artem Lobov confronted in the first place. So to end the presser, we've got the whiskey, we've got the political and ethnic tension between Chechnya and Dagestan, we've got the attempt at political suicide with Magomedov and linking him with Khabib Nurmagomedov, and then you've got him calling him a coward at the bus incident. All of that happened.
He also made mention of his father.
Yep.
He brought up his father at the press conference as well, didn't he?
Yes.
I believe so.
Yes, he did. And don't forget, he also talked about his manager. He called him a terrorist snitch.
Well, that was presser number 2. I was getting to that.
I'm sorry. Oops, my bad.
Ryan is like, all right, it's go time. We got to fight now.
I know, right?
he
the
put
run
the
sheet,
damn
y'all.
voice on.
We got this on the run sheet. Keep it going. No. So you're right. Those were more things. He on his father. He was calling his manager out on the whenever they were facing off at the first presser. All these things in the first presser, just layers upon layers of insults. Khabib never responded. He just kept to his story. I see you October 6th. We lock the cage, and then we talk.
Well,
He's done.
I do have a second piece in there.
Okay, go ahead.
It goes back to what I was saying also, though. Khabib looked weak in that press conference as a result as well, because he didn't respond. And some people will say, yeah, he took the high road and things like that. Other people looked at it and just felt like, no, Khabib could not. Mentally, he couldn't engage in this kind of warfare with Conor. Conor was just too sharp. Conor's striking when it comes to the mental warfare is just way over the top. Khabib knew he couldn't handle that, so he chose to go ahead and take that loss. Yep.
There it is. This is George St. Pierre did the same thing when he was going back and forth with Michael Bisping for that fight that they had. George was like, I can't talk trash. English is not even my first language, so he can say what he wants to say. I'll just handle it whenever we get in the ring, and he did. So there's something to be said about champions who talk less and act in the ring. Casey, I am conceding that point to you.
Excellent.
I like that point. It reminds me of Joanna and Rose, Thug Rose. Joanna talked all that trash. Thug Rose said the Lord's Prayer and beat her ass.
All right, let's get on. So we are.
Can I get an amen?
So let's get to presser number 2. The big quote that I wanted to stick with. Conor said all kinds of stuff. He showed up 15 minutes late. Khabib responded to the crowd, said a lot of things, and then he left. And so when Conor got there, once again with all his proper 12 whiskey, the big thing that he said was about Khabib's manager, and he said his manager is a blank snitch terrorist rat. He was pulled off a flight from Cairo, Egypt, to New York on September 11, 2001, and caught with 5 passports in his possession. He turned informant and turned on people he was working with. I don't even know how that man is in this blank country. So right then and there, he went in deep on Khabib's manager as well, and so it was relentless.
Yeah, that one was very crafty, though, because he touched on American sentiment. He brought up 9/11. So now you've just engaged the American people as well. Oh, we've got this terrorist over here, and he's backing Nurmagomedov. On top of that, with what's going on in America now with Trump and Russia. So this was masterful on Conor's part, man. This was like a 6-piece combination ending with a head kick. I mean, just to go there, to even bring up 9/11 and talk about that like that, about, what's his name, Abdul Al-Aziz?
That's right.
Yeah. Oh, man, Conor is a wizard when it comes to that mental warfare.
And it was all true. That's the crazy thing. It is all true. Okay? There was nothing that they could really say to deny any of that.
But
so not only did Conor played chess, and he won in 3 moves.
But I fear that in some way we normalize this behavior by like this is normal sparring, and like I can't believe he would do so well. When the reality is this, and not to sound overly sensitive, but this is legitimately psychological abuse. This has nothing to do with trying to win a fight and everything to do with breaking down someone's
really. Oh my goodness. Yes, from the moment I sign a contract to take a fight, I'm looking for any edge, anything. Yes, you're right. There are some things that are out of bounds, but yeah, I want to look at this my opponent's team. I want to find the weaknesses I can point out in them, and if anything I can do to mentally get in your head, so that when I walk in that ring or that cage on Friday night, Saturday night, whatever it may be, that I'm one up on you, that I'm looking at you like I've already beaten you.
Yeah.
So here, I want to jump in here. George, you said there are some things that are out of bounds. Was anything that was said, whether it was on Instagram, Twitter, whether it was at the first press conference, the second press conference, was any of that out of bounds? Are you saying that none of it was out of bounds?
I think the comments about his father were out of bounds. 1, that's the first thing I would say. 2, I think given the political situation with Russia, we know Putin is not beyond putting a hit on somebody.
Yup.
Like that one there, you're playing
Common
with
again.
people's life. You're not just playing with
Let me say,
Nurmagomedov's life.
allegedly,
You're playing with his family's life. You know what I'm saying? Habib has a child. He's got a wife. I think he lives at home with his mom and dad
live
still.
in Russia still.
So
Yeah.
you get what I'm saying? Like that for him. I'm sure Conor had to understand. If he did all that research, he has to understand that
Okay.
Habib can very well be in danger behind the way Conor attacked him on that when it came to the Putin comments and talking about the Russian oligarch who was backing him and things like that. So those two things, I would say, yeah, I think he should have exercised some discretion on. Because, we're not at this point yet, but I want to talk about it at some point. In the ring, Conor made a half-hearted apology to Habib. He said something about, hey, this was business.
So yeah, we'll get to that. Casey, you got something?
No. I think that's a good point of clarification in that, to some degree, yes, there is space to denigrate your opponent, probably more so on skill than who they are. And I think that, yeah, you want to find those edges as an athlete, as a competitor. You want to have that mental edge, but I think there's still time and place matters. And this is why I'm a big fan of, this is going to sound contrary and you're going to ding me on this, Ryan, but as a football player, man, there was so much trash talking that happened on the field, trash talk in the fight. I don't know about this whole presser situation where it's manufactured. It's not real. You're not going to fight there anyway, so why are we doing so much?
I think that reason is psychological warfare. Okay, he knew what he was doing. Okay, well, in his mind, he knew what he was doing. He was going to get under that skin, get him rattled, and have him think about everything that he was going to say all the way. Everything that he said, he was going to have him think about it.
Well, you play dumb games, you get dumb prizes. So he can't act surprised that things popped off the way they did, though.
Exactly, and see, that's why this turned into a serious live action case of when keeping it real goes wrong. Okay, because he sat there and he thought that, Conor thinks he's a gangster for some reason, and that he's all hard and everything like that. No, you don't know gangster. Okay, because Conor, yes, the Irish and the IRA, they were blowing stuff up back in the day. Okay, but Conor did not grow up in that.
Yeah.
Habib is only 30. That means he grew up during the war. Okay, he's seen things that none of us really want to see. Okay, ever, and we would never wish that on our children to see. So you're gonna mess with a dude that grew up in that type of life. All right, that's living under a dictator. I'll say it. That if he says, "Hey, I want you to take a picture with me," it's not really a request. Okay, you're going to take that picture. You live with you live under a rule of a president that sat there and when was confronted about human rights abuses towards the LGBT community, he was like, "Oh, we don't have that here." No, because you killed them all. You grabbed them in the middle of the night and you killed them all. You don't mess with people like that.
All right,
you definitely don't mess with people like. I'm sorry, I'll soapbox.
You don't want to mess with Vladimir Putin. That's it.
Yeah, fair enough.
All right. So let's get back to one thing I don't have here on the run sheet that we do need to address is, so we go from the press conference to the weigh-ins. They face off after both of them have done the ceremonial weigh-ins, and Conor slaps down Habib's hand, and then when Dana White steps in, he kicks at Habib to try to egg him on there. Now, John, I want to go to you real quick. You say whoever cracks loses. Do you call that cracking on behalf of Conor, or is this more of that mental warfare?
Now, that was Conor cracking, okay? He's been cracking since the first presser, okay? I mean, if you have to go that hard, that's nothing. He's doing nothing but flinching. When they did the first face-off, He sat there and told him that you're dead. I'm going to kill you. This is Conor saying this to that man. Okay, and then at the weigh-in, after he told Dana he was not going to hit his hand, and David told him, do not touch each other. He gets there together and he smacks his hand and then throws a kick. Okay, Dana's face said it all when it happened. If you looked at his face, you can see like, oh, here we go. All right, Conor
secretly
okay.
Won. Come on.
I don't know that Dana secretly wanted that, but I do know this, that for those of you out there who are still listening,
all three of y'all.
Yeah. Here's the thing: is that we have gotten now to fight night, and I want to just recap. You had Artem Lobov, you had Khabib. Khabib confronted Lobov. Conor retaliated overwhelmingly, destroying the bus. They get the fight signed, and this is relentless abuse from Conor to Khabib, from the signing of the contract to the night before the fight. It is relentless, it is constant, and Khabib at no time took any aggression towards Conor McGregor. At no time. At no time did he say anything more than there were some. He made some attempt to talk about. It was actually fairly slick, and this is a digression, so I apologize for this. But one of the things that Conor attempted to do was to ridicule the Dagestani people for being pushed out of their native lands to the mountains of Dagestan by the incoming Russian, the Russian, I guess it was the Bolsheviks at the time, or maybe it was Stalin. I don't know which army, but they pushed them to the cliffs of the Caucasus Mountains. Khabib responded with, "Well, you guys had to fight the English," and so Khabib said to Conor, he's like, even though my people were pushed to the edges of the Caucasus Mountains, we're still speaking our mother tongue, but I see you're speaking English.
Oh, devastating.
And I'm like, whoa, because of course the native tongue for the Irish is Gaelic. And so, Conor then responded by trying to speak a little broken Gaelic. I don't think he speaks it, to be honest, but, that was a body blow. That was the one punch that Conor had to take from Khabib this whole time.
And Conor bit down on it too by trying to speak, like you said, in broken Gaelic. It was like, oh, they got him. That was one.
That was one. That was it the whole time. So now we are at fight night. They walk into the rings. The security is to epic levels. They won't even let them get close enough to touch gloves to fight.
No, they allowed it. They just didn't want to.
No, they had security pushing their arms in front of both of them. They didn't even get close enough.
I was going to say, they didn't go Jose Aldo and Conor on him, though. You remember during that fight, they actually had a line of the commission guys separating the octagon.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you're right. They didn't do that. So we've already been over the fight, but it's important to bring up what we were laughing about during the live event, and this is another plug for listening to the live event. But the veteran moves that Joe Rogan was giving credit to Conor for. Conor cheated during the fight multiple times and got away with it. Herb Dean, who was the referee, did not call Conor and take any penalties on Conor for grabbing Khabib's shorts to avoid Khabib from advancing his position after he'd taken him down. He grabbed Khabib's glove on the inside, which is illegal, in order to keep Khabib's hands from being able to throw more punches and to improve his advantage. Conor was grabbing the cage with his toes in order to gain leverage to keep from being, repositioned and moved. And then Conor actually landed an illegal knee to the face of Khabib.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was
and
called
it
out.
Didn't phase them.
They were both grounded opponents at that point.
You still can't land a knee. You can't do it.
Yeah, can't land a knee on a grounded opponent.
Even if they're both
They were
grounded.
both grounded.
It doesn't matter.
Even
You can't land a knee
you
to
need
the
to
head.
redress the rules on this one.
You can't land a knee to the head when they're both down, because you can only land a knee
And
to
if
the
I
body.
recall correctly, Conor was on his back. Habib was in side control. So the referee could actually look at that and say it was kind of accidental. Conor might have been putting his knee up to prevent Habib from going over into a mount position from the side control, something like that.
No, that was intent.
But it did look pretty hard.
Yeah,
because that
was intent. And I heard a little right behind it. So I think it was very intense.
All I know is that, George, you can't see my face, but I'm giving you that look. Like, come on.
I'm just speaking up for Herb, man. I don't want everybody to think Herb's a bad referee.
Herb is not a bad referee, but he let some stuff go that should not go.
He let a lot of stuff go.
But that's kind of
what
what
trying to get people killed
before the fight. Hey, let him fight.
Let him fight.
Herbie trying to get people killed, man.
Yeah.
Let's get it right.
Anyway.
I love Herb, the Predator, Dean, but I think he's not through with his aggression yet. Because I think the fighters may say something to Herb, and he just be like, "Okay, all right, we'll go see how this gonna go." And yeah, there you go.
So
next thing you know, the guy's getting 12 extra shots just because he talks smack to Herb. So
round 4 happens. Khabib takes Conor's back, gets him into a neck crank. Khabib wins the fight via submission. He did it exactly how he said he was going to do. He said he was going to beat Conor up. He said he was going to take Conor down, maul him, and then submit him. And he did it exactly the way he said he was going to do it. And then the melee happened. So we've gotten you now to the melee. I'll start with you, KC. What did you see?
What I saw was after the win, Herb Dean did a great job of separating because it looked like Khabib was going to latch on and just like, all right, we're going in. Herb Dean separates him. Khabib throws his mouthpiece out just like, heck yeah, let's do this. And you've got Conor's corner still just trash talking from across the octagon as Khabib is already walking towards it. Khabib is like, all right, well, let's go time. And so what a lot of people miss in this is we'll say that Khabib jumps into the crowd and starts this melee. But I'm just going to pull a Ryan here and soften the story here for my fighter. Say that if you look at it, Khabib jumps out into the crowd, but he doesn't actually land a punch. Dennis is able to throw a punch, but the video shows Khabib never throws a punch. He jumps in. He's war eagling off of the cage. But he just
I like that.
Conor lands the first this melee. So what happens then is Khabib's corner jumps up and is riding with him. Conor sees one of Khabib's boys, and as Khabib's friend is on the cage, Conor throws a shot at him, and then someone in red pants jumps over into the octagon and throws 2 at Conor, and then everything just kind of gets broken up at that point.
All right. So, John, I'm going to go to you next. Is that what you saw? How would you address that?
I will clean this up. Okay. so yes. All right. We'll start with the submission. Okay. Khabib cranks Conor's neck to the right and twists his body to the left, gets the submission tap. Herb Dean has to literally put his body weight on Khabib to get him off. He gets off, he's celebrating, but he looks over towards Conor's corner. You see that he's pointing his hand at somebody. He pulls his mouthpiece off and throws it at him. The person that he's doing it to is Dylan Dennis. Okay? Dylan Dennis is I believe is Conor's wrestling coach, I believe. I can't remember. But he is a part of Conor's team. Apparently, Dylan was saying so much crap that Khabib said, well, hey, let's do this. And once again, he jumps over the octagon ring and does like the Jean-Claude Van Damme barefoot leap on concrete floor, which if anybody is barefoot, try and jump up and down on concrete, see how that feels. Anyway, he does throw a punch. He's throwing a flying punch, okay, and hits Dennis in the head. and the fight begins. Okay? They are separated. Meanwhile, back in the octagon, Conor's trying to get over there, over the ring, but can't. But he sees one of Khabib's boys trying to go over, and he swings at him. Conor throws the first punch that starts the fight in the octagon. At this point, they're scuffling. Another one of Khabib's friends jumps in the ring behind him. This guy was the guy that kind of threatened Conor on Instagram a couple of weeks ago, saying that he better apologize or something's going to happen to him. Apparently, this is what's going to happen to him. He gets hit in the back of the head a couple of times. He gets a two-piece for his problems. Okay? At this point, everybody's trying to pull everybody off. There's so much police in the stadium that Las Vegas was not safe that night. Okay, they're trying to get these two guys off. Finally, when they get things under control, Khabib's like, "Okay, it's over. Where's my belt?"
Okay, all right, let's stop you there, George. Anything you want to change on that description?
Some minute things. First, back to the submission itself. Khabib has this neck crank on Conor. If you go back and look at the video, the neck crank, although there is pressure, there's no, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a little harder to submit somebody with that. There's torque, there's all those things going on, but you're not in danger until your chin actually goes past your shoulder, and that was not the case. So I want to say Conor tapped fairly quickly to that neck crank. One. Wow. Okay. Two, Herb pulls Khabib away. Khabib pulls the mouthpiece out, throws it in the direction of Dylan Dennis. John Kavanaugh and Owen Rowdy are over there as well. Khabib wore eagles off, like you said, over Owen and John. He was not even intent on them at all. It was all directed at Dylan. So if you go back and look, over the past few weeks, Dylan Dennis also has been social media taking shots at Khabib as well. If not Khabib, at over the whole situation. So that was the issue between Khabib and Dylan. That's where that really started. I don't know what punches did or didn't land when Khabib landed over there, but if I'm Conor, I see Khabib go over and I see him what appears to be attacking my teammates, and then I see one of Khabib's guys jumping over the cage. Yes, I'm taking a shot because even though it looks like Conor threw the first punch, Conor was acting in defense of his team, because that's if you were right there looking at it, that's what it appeared. Khabib just attacked my squad. Your teammate is going over the cage in an effort to go after or to go help Khabib. I need to stop that. So I'm taking a shot at this guy who's up on the cage right now. So I even though the outside observer, it looks like Conor threw the first punch, Conor was acting in defense of his teammate. So I think that was fair. Two, Conor was a sanctioned fighter still inside the ring. Much different than someone who exited the ring, attacked people in the crowd, whether they were corners or not. So there's a big difference between the two of those. Conor, for all intents and purposes, his remaining in the ring is what saved him from getting his purse snatched that night.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think where it went from there. So the guy that went up on the ring first was actually scheduled to fight Autumn Lobov in a few weeks. You spoke of him earlier.
The guy in the red shirt. So,
but no, I'm talking about the guy in the black shirt that Conor pulled out. He was trying to pull off
that's not the guy that was scheduled to fight Autumn. It was the guy in the red shirt who hit Conor from behind.
Okay, all right, I got it wrong there. So anyway, all that to say, that guy was scheduled to fight Autumn here shortly.
Yep.
So, and I don't think Autumn's fight has been pulled. They just pulled this guy from the fight. So there's an opportunity for what this drama is going to ensue. There's going to be more. You can rest assured on that. The guy that took shots at Conor in the cage definitely should be suspended.
He's fired. He's been fired.
Yeah, they said that anybody that was involved. Go ahead.
The piece I want to see in this. So you remember Conor had an incident at Bellator where he entered the cage and blah blah blah, did all these things, and everybody said, "Oh, we can't do anything to him. He's not a commissioned fighter." You know that kind of scenario. I want to see how they sanction these two guys that entered the ring here. I want to see what happens to them compared to Conor.
He's been fired. So
By the UFC?
Yes, by the UFC. They've already announced that he's been fired. So I'm going to just put my little 2 cents in. You guys, between the three of you, have done a good job of covering the facts of what happened. So I'm only going to say a few things. Number one, when Herb Dean pulled Khabib off of Conor, Khabib spits on Conor at that point. I think it's important for us to know that as well. That Conor is sitting down on the cage. Khabib spits at him, and then he walks across the ring, across the octagon to Conor's corner, throwing his mouthpiece and then getting into it with Dylan Dennis. You guys have covered that well. He jumped off the cage and did that. It is not until until Khabib goes off the cage and into the crowd that that Conor jumps up and runs after him. So I thought you covered that really well, George, with who he punched, which I think was Conor's, which was Khabib's. I think might have been his cousin. At that point,
his cousin or his brother?
Cousin or his brother. It's a family member. So what happens is security pulls Conor down off the cage, and two more of Khabib's team jump into the ring. Conor throws a left and catches one of those guys, and that's when Zabara took Kovov, which is the guy that Conor had the picture of, saying that he was a Chechen who was a treasonous person to his people. That is the guy who punched Conor from behind, who was scheduled to fight Artem Lobov. Because he had said that he was going to make Conor answer for those things, and he went after the melee at UFC 229. Zabira took Kovov and said, "I got you." So he admitted to having entered the ring and punched Conor. So to your point, whether or not they were going to sanction him or do something to him, that is why he got fired. Number one, because he entered the ring and he shouldn't have. He attacked a fighter that was still sanctioned and still in the ring at the end of a fight. And three, he fully acknowledged it on social media that that's what he did.
You know, he's fresh off a USADA suspension too.
So you know, this is everything that people have worked on for so long on. They have just discarded it and thrown it away. So I guess the question that I have for you first, was Conor a victim? After all that we've been through, all the stuff that Conor said leading up to this, after the stuff that he did in the ring, is Conor a victim? And okay, go ahead, Casey.
Yeah, there's no way I can consider the man a victim, because this is what happens when you trash talk. Like there's these unwritten rules and lines that you cross, and the purpose of trash talk is to get a fight started and for it to happen. So Conor got his just desserts in the ring, and that's what's up. All of the fighting outside of the ring, like I'm not gonna put this on solely on Khabib, because you provoked this. Don't be surprised when someone like Conor is used to fighting smaller people, and he stepped up against the wrong one.
So, anybody want to add anything to that?
I don't think he was a victim in this at all. I echo Casey's commentary on that. You know, the trash talk, everything is gone. This is the fight world. You know what I'm saying? Like, you signed up for this. No, you're not a victim.
John.
And I'll say it like this. I'm not saying what Khabib did was right, but I understand. Okay? You cannot sit there and say the things you said, do the things you do to a man like Khabib, and not expect anything, not even just a man like Khabib, to any man. You cannot do that to another man and expect nothing to happen back. Okay? He got what he got. Anybody that considers him a victim, you got selective memory, and you really need to reevaluate that.
Oh, I want to add one little piece here that I think got missed in my earlier evaluation of the situation. Like, I just don't want it to get skipped over, the fact that we're talking about Conor went after God and country, which in America you couldn't do. If the roles were flipped, and Khabib was talking trash about Christianity in America, we would be in an uproar. Like, there is a huge problem with the fact that we can flip the country and the religion, and it's normative. Like, this is why I refuse to see Conor as this victim, or like, oh, this shouldn't have happened. Like, we've got people protesting the NFL over perceived issues around, like, oh, you're disrespecting the flag. Conor disrespected not only this man's flag, this man's other second home. Like, Conor went after sacred cows that you cannot do. So he can never be looked at as the victim here, because the people who say he's a victim are the same ones who are complaining about anthem protests, or the same ones complaining about how dare anyone come to our country and not want to change their ways. Like, if you love God and country that much, imagine how much Khabib does. Like, don't play that card.
Okay, then. I'm just going to move on because, here's the thing. What is said was said. And he stepped over the line. And those are things that were inappropriately said. It was. And I don't condone Conor having said those things. But the fact is that Khabib got his just dessert. He gave Conor exactly what he wanted to give him. He was done. And we're gonna play some clips later of Dana White at the press conference. But the fact is that Conor was there. He was done. He was sitting on the canvas when all of this erupted around him. You can't say that, Conor, you got what you deserved when Conor wasn't actively instigating what happened after the fight ended. The dude was standing there.
No.
Just saying.
We're talking about the same man that throws water bottles at press conferences, that throws dollies and guardrails, and like,
listen,
why do I have to turn it on and turn it off if you can turn it on and turn it off whenever you want to? Why am I held to a different set of rules?
No, because it matters when and where it happens. If you go and Conor throws a
Not
bottle,
to Conor.
Hold on. If Conor throws a bottle at let's say when he was promoting the Nate Diaz fight, he threw a bottle at a bar because Nate Diaz showed up there, and he threw a bottle and hit somebody. If somebody came and attacked him after he threw the bottle at the bar where he threw it, no, Conor's not a victim. He took an action, and there was a direct consequence as a result of the action. What we are talking about is Conor McGregor, who is now defeated, who is now sitting in the ring, minding his own business.
Innocent bystander, you're saying?
Yeah, that's baloney. Come on now. You started the fight.
No. But that's the thing.
Khabib didn't go and whoop him again. The picture that you're painting is like, oh, these are separate incidences. What you're saying is like,
these are separate incidences.
No, the people who still had stuff to handle went and handled it. So the people that Conor went after and started talking, threw hands. The people that were talking about Khabib, Danis, threw hands at those people. Like, the fight continued. Like, I don't know why you're trying to...
Let's call it separate instances. Khabib separately went after Dylan Danis. Had nothing to do with Conor.
Right.
He was on to Dylan. Conor, in defense of his team, then jumps back into the fray. No, he's not a victim.
Because he could have walked away. There's security there.
Okay. All right. You're absolutely right. He could have walked away. So but he didn't. He went after and tried to protect his guys. He wasn't able to get out of the ring. They pulled him back, and then two more guys came in. At that point,
one was already in. He was trying to get out.
There were. I don't know if he was trying to get in or get out. There were three guys, not two. There were three. The guy that was on the cage that Conor took a swing at and hit. Right? Then when they pulled him back, the security was around him. That's when two other guys entered the ring. Okay? So Conor is no longer in this. He's no longer the aggressor. I mean, I'm telling you.
I want to argue the point on this. The guy that got pulled off the ring, he got pulled back into the cage. He's the guy that circled back around and threw the first punch at Conor.
No, it's not. If you go back and look
at it.
He
had on the black T-shirt.
There were 2 guys that had black T-shirts. You can go back and watch it.
All right.
Go back and watch it. There are 3 guys, and this is how the incident takes place. Look, man, I've watched this from
Bruder films will show that there's a man on the
different angles.
Grassy Knolls. The punch from the Grassy Knolls.
Yes. Conor goes up, punches the guy that's on the cage. They pull him down, surrounded by security. 2 other guys enter in. One has a black shirt, one has a red shirt. We've already established that guy is Zahara
Tukhugov.
Yeah, what his name is, Zabara Tukhugov. Yeah, we've already established that's the guy in the red shirt. So when those 2 guys enter, you see the second guy in the black shirt move around, see what's going on, and then he approaches Conor aggressively, which Conor responds by throwing a left and hitting him. When he turns and faces him, red guy punches Conor from behind.
Mm-hmm.
Security goes and separates the red guy and moves him off the way, and the original guy who was on the cage then attacks Conor.
Yeah, you're never a victim if you willingly jump into a fight.
So I'm not. I know that I entered into this conversation as Conor as the victim, but the point I'm trying to make is that a lot of people want to levy, Conor with as much responsibility for the melee as Khabib. We can say that Conor all day long. He's the one that pushed Khabib to the edge, leading up to this fight. But once the fight was over, Khabib instigated everything that led up to the melee after that. And so more heavily does the responsibility for what happened fall on Khabib than it does on Conor. That's the point that I'm trying to make here, is that this is not a responsibility of equals. While Conor has some responsibility, and while he did go in and engage in response to what Khabib did, this falls squarely on the shoulders of Khabib Nurmagomedov, and to say otherwise is to falsely accuse Conor of instigating this that night.
I don't think anybody's saying that Conor's at fault for the melee afterwards. Not by any means. But
are we? Wait, before you move on,
I'm not placing.
Before we move on, let's go around the horn.
Dang it, Ryan.
Because, if we want to establish this, I want to make sure. I hear you saying it. John, what do you say? Because I'm coming to you, KC.
I say, all right, because I'm saying like this, okay? Who is the person to blame? The person that builds the bomb or the person that sets it off? Who is the person to blame for it?
They both go to jail.
No. But they don't get equal sentences. The person who's the accessory never gets the harsher sentence. It's the trigger man. It's the person who actually did the murder. It's not the person who supplied the gun.
This is a classic case of gaslighting, and so we can say that legal equivalency and moral equivalency are not the same. So
exactly.
From a legal standpoint,
positioning the legality of this.
Well, if the whole thing has come down to, Conor was never had to pay for his other stuff, right? So, and you're coming down and saying that if you break the law, then if you were the accomplice, you don't get as much time as the person who did the act. So this is why I'm taking it to the legality. So for legal purposes, yes, Conor shouldn't get as much, blowback, however you want to describe that. But if we're talking on a purely,
if we're talking on a moral level, they're both guilty. If anything, I would put more pressure on Conor as the one that built this situation. Okay, yep. With Khabib being the one that reacted to the situation. Okay, this situation would not been at the level that it would have been if Conor hadn't have built it to this level.
So
he was the one that stoked the fire.
Building a case against Conor. Let's be honest here. You can't throw the.
All I gotta say is this, guys. we have 30 minutes of you guys talking about how masterful Conor was in his execution of his trash talking, how great he
say masterful. What are you talking about? I thought it was trash.
I said he was a mental warfare genius. He was on the level of Genghis Khan, Napoleon, all those great warfare generals. He did it. He did his job. Yeah. He sold this fight. What more could you ask for him out of this?
So
the melee afterwards wasn't even about Conor. This was Dylan and Khabib.
I know, but you guys are levying a penalty on Conor McGregor for having done his job, setting up the animus that led to the fight.
That's not his job.
It is his job to sell the fight, to make it something that people want to watch. And the fact is that all of you have talked about. Well, I'm gonna give you a pass on this, KC, John, and George. You both have talked about how well Conor did his job in getting into the head of Khabib. But then you cannot then say, well, morally that's wrong. No.
Hey, I told you from the beginning. I felt like he did two things that were overboard. One, he talked about the man's father, and I can't remember the second piece, but there were two things I felt like Conor stepped over with. But outside of that, no. The melee afterwards had nothing even to do with that because Khabib didn't attack Conor then. He attacked Dylan Dennis.
So the point is that Conor does not have a responsibility morally for what happened there.
He holds responsibility for the people.
Yeah, Hold on. Let me defend myself because, yes, I did say that he did it masterfully. Okay? He did it like George said, like the great General devolved. But at the same time, okay, just because you do it masterfully doesn't mean you're doing it right. Okay? If I sit there and let's take Hannibal Lecter. Okay? Hannibal Lecter was a great cook. Okay, we just didn't like the materials that he was using to cook with. All right, that's the same thing here. Okay, Conor cooked his fava beans pretty good. Okay, all right, doesn't mean we want to eat them. All right, he did it. He did it well, but he reaped his rewards, which was some fistises and a couple of kicks and a neck crank that probably broke his jaw. Yeah.
So what I want to do here is also set up yes, all of these are valid, but at the end of the day, it comes down to the question for me, at least, does this mean that we have to change the way that we talk about fights, how we promote fights, the things that are okay to say and not to say?
All right.
And I think you've got some stuff on that.
Yeah, so let's go right into that. The question is, what role does trash talking play in combat sports? Casey, I'm going to let you keep going on that.
No. So my stance has always remained that to me, I want to differentiate trash talk versus promo talk. And promo talk would be where my skill set is better than your skill set. Here are the holes I see in your game and how I'm going to expose that. Trash talking is when it goes beyond physical attributes and even to some degree mental preparedness. And we've seen this slip out into people denigrating fighters over their sexual orientation or mental health state. Those things become out of bounds when we start talking about people's girlfriends, calling them horseface. All these things have happened, and retribution has been taken by the governing body, in this case UFC. When it comes to Conor, he has carte blanche to say whatever he wants, and I think that this is creating an environment within the UFC that is turning it into a WWE circus with real-world consequences.
The dog agrees.
Apparently.
So, is there a double standard then, John?
Yes. It's heir apparent. If anything serious happens to Khabib that didn't happen to Conor, it is heir apparent that there is a double standard. I do believe that trash talk has its place in the fight game because it's a fight. All right, everybody's going to talk crap about somebody in a fight, but let this be a cautionary tale on what happens when you take it too far. Okay, we have to have, as a fighter, yes, you should be able to trash talk, but also as a fighter, you need to have responsibility for what you say and what you do, because it will come back.
All right. So for the fighter, double champ, what do you say?
So the problem here is that this horse has left the barn and the door is open and there's no need to shut it anymore. This started, I wouldn't say it started. Conor's always talking noise, but there was a huge escalation point when they started doing the Mayweather-McGregor press conferences. Conor stepped his level up and understood, there is levels to this I haven't even bothered to touch when I was fighting for the UFC. Like, I didn't understand I could take it to this level. And so that's the first problem you face right here. Conor has been inside that boxing ring now and seen a totally different side of promoting a fight and the trash talk that goes there. And now he's taking that back into the UFC. You get what I'm saying? Like, it's just on a whole nother level for Conor now. And I mentioned it earlier. He half-heartedly kind of apologized, like in the second round to Khabib. I think at the end of the second round, he said something to the fact of, this is business. This is all about, good business. He was basically admitting, saying, hey, all this trash talk I've been doing was to hype the fight, because Khabib wasn't selling it.
Yeah.
So back to the question, does trash talking play a role in combat sports? It absolutely does. But I do agree that there should be some things that are off limits. One, definitely is family. Two, probably religion should not be something that we're bringing up as fighters. It harkens back to Muhammad Ali when he was fighting. I don't remember too many fighters bringing up that point against him or whatever. And I'm sure that many of those fighters could have, but for whatever reason, and it may have happened, but I don't remember hearing anything about that.
Yeah, the fighters themselves never brought it up to Ali. Where he got it most was from the sportscasters trying to sell the fight. And I think that's where sports has shifted, is it's gone from the promoting your fight to you as the fighter have to become your own brand. And this is troublesome because these guys aren't marketing professionals.
Now, there was one incident with Ali that I could say maybe kind of touched it. I don't know if it was Sonny Liston he was fighting, but one of them wouldn't call Ali Muhammad Ali. He would only call him Cassius. Yep. And so that became an issue, because for Muhammad Ali, you're messing with me religiously, because I've told you I don't go by that government name. I'm Muhammad Ali.
His mama named him Cassius. I'm going to call him Cassius.
So,
sorry.
But yeah, trash talk absolutely plays a role in this. One, it helps sell the fight. Two, it gets fighters up for their game. When I'm in training, I'm thinking about my opponent. I'm having to come up with things to fuel myself. You know what I'm saying? I'm realizing that as I look in the mirror, this other guy is somewhere training right now just as hard, if not harder, trying to beat me. So yeah, I'm talking trash even while I'm training.
Yeah.
All right, so let's start to wrap this up. Will Khabib get his belt stripped? So I'm going to go to you, John. Do you think Khabib's going to get his belt stripped?
So in place of John, because we had a technical difficulty, I think he will get it stripped, but that's just to set up a more interesting fight.
Okay. George, what do you think? Do you think Khabib's going to get his belt stripped?
It's possible to have it stripped, but it won't be because of the melee or anything like that. It's going to be because of something like his visa issues, things like that are going to occur as a result of the melee. The melee itself is not what's going to get it stripped. It's going to be the things that come as a result afterwards, whether or not he can get back into the country for another appropriate time for a fight, whether or not he can be sanctioned in certain jurisdictions, because this took place in Vegas. Vegas has jurisdiction over it. For all we know, they may suspend him for some exuberant amount of time. They're holding his check right now. I think he was supposed to make like $2 or $3 million off of this fight. His check is in lieu right now. Nobody knows what's going to happen with that. So, do I think it's going to be stripped? No, Do I think the UFC is going to be forced to a position where they've got to do something with that belt? Yes, and it's going to be because he's not going to be able to fight when they want him to.
Okay, so I think John is back.
Surprise!
John, I want to back up just a little bit. Dana's decision not to award Khabib's belt in the octagon. A lot of people took umbrage to that. They felt that was wrong and that he should have done that. Dana decided not to do that because he felt like the crowd, which was already in a very tense moment, might escalate the animus and potentially create an even more dangerous situation. What were your thoughts on Dana's decision not to award Khabib's belt in the octagon?
It was wise, even though they were that, understanding how amped up the crowd was. I understand why Dana did it. Okay. As you saw, like I was surprised that they weren't throwing stuff in the ring already at that point. Okay. And it wasn't until he actually got like right there back at the tunnel that they did start throwing stuff at him. So I think it was a smart play on Dana's part to do that, but he should have had a award presentation at some point. On camera that everybody could see.
Okay. KC, George, do either of you agree or disagree with Dana's decision not to award Khabib's belt in the octagon?
Oh, Dana is masterful in what he's doing. This creates the situation for the belt being called illegitimate. We didn't even award it to you after the fight that you allegedly won. And we're probably going to have to take this belt from you anyway. You're creating more opportunities now for other fights. People get to question the legitimacy of their belt as a result because it wasn't, things weren't done in the proper stance. You remember back when, who was it? One of the presidents wasn't sworn in.
It was Obama. They misspoke whenever they were doing the justice was reading him the oath of office, he said it wrong. And so because he had said it wrong, people were questioning legitimacy of Obama's presidency.
Same thing here. And what did Obama do? He went back and made him do it again.
Yep. KC.
No, I'm on board with both these guys. Like, was it really wise not to do it in the ring? Yes. Was it also a very calculated move that actually in some small way stirs additional animus? Yes. Was it a move to protect the UFC as an organization? Yes. But I also can't give a reason why. I can't give a good case for why this should have happened because there was too much going on. I agree with John in that there should have been some sort of ceremony afterwards, but that conflicts with that point number 2 of was it protecting the UFC? So if they award it in a ceremonious fashion, then it looks as though the UFC is condoning these actions. So it's a no-win scenario, but it does, for you as a storyline guy, this makes for an interesting story, especially if it gets somehow ruled a no contest later.
Oh, wow. Okay, so I want to end with 4 clips. This is Dana White at the press conference. I think it's important for us to hear what Dana White, who is the CEO and the guy who's brought the UFC to this point, what he has to say about all of this. Now, they're long clips, but I think it's important for us to hear what he has to say. Now, the first one goes back to the notion that in the beginning of the promotion of this fight, they used Conor's attack on the bus at UFC 223 as the as kind of the pitch, the advertisement for why you should watch this fight. So let's hear what Dana White has to say, and then I really want to know whether or not you agree with his take on this. So here we go.
Dana, you said that the bus incident was disgusting. The press conference was the darkest press conference ever. Today you're disappointed. Do you regret using the bus footage, which kind of incensed Conor? Looking back to kind of how it ended up right now, would you do the same again?
I would.
Okay.
It's part of the story.
Yep.
Okay, so we'll go around the horn. George, do you agree with Dana White there? Should he have used the bus footage in the promo of this fight?
No, not at all.
Right.
I don't agree with it.
John,
I think it was shady. I think as a promoter, he has an obligation to keep the sport clean and fair, and you used the crime that this man was charged for, found guilty of, pled guilty to sell this fight. No, you shouldn't have done that.
And while I agree with George on that it was a crime that they showed to promote a fight, especially a crime where people got hurt, that, you know, a person is actually mentally scarred from. At the same time, he did a Don King move, and he used it to market a very big fight. I'm not saying that he was right, but once again, I say I understand why he did it.
All right, KC.
I think it normalizes terrible behavior, and if he wants to go down that route, then you got to use Greg Hardy footage from his trials and his alleged. I'm just being honest.
Wow.
If that's fair game,
You make a point.
Yeah. The question is whether
it
he
is
made
Pandora's
a good
box.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. You know,
Hit it right on the head.
From a you know, this is where, you know, for me, if I look at what I would have done, I would not have used the bus footage, because I have always been against images that show my promotion as a clone of the WWE. So I wouldn't have used the footage because of the fact that this makes me look more like pro wrestling. However, I do see how Dana White, because of the fact that it creates this visceral reaction, the you know, to want to see what's going to happen. This is you know, this is absolutely something that I think that from the UFC perspective, to sell more tickets, this is an effective way to do that. All right, let's go to the next one. This was asking about the UFC's decision not to take action on Conor for the bus incident and how this may have contributed to Khabib's actions after the fight.
Do you feel, Dana, if you had taken action after the bus incident, like the legal process took place, but you were adamant you weren't going to do anything, had you suspended Conor for X period of time, that you don't think that would have had any deterrent impact?
Had nothing to do with that. He wasn't coming back and saying he wants to jump over the fence because we didn't suspend Conor. Jumped over the fence because Conor's guy was talking to him.
No, understood. But don't you think that just the fact that it set the tone, like it allowed that to happen, if there had been some...
Do you have any idea how much money it cost Conor?
I don't.
The whole thing, that it's millions of dollars.
But the
millions.
signal, like Khabib doesn't know that, or Khabib's team doesn't know that. And so
they know that.
The argument, the point I'm making, not an argument, I'm asking you a question, would be, it's a deterrent effect. If you say, you look in the NFL or wherever, they suspended guys for a period of time, it serves as a deterrent to other people to not do that same thing. And I guess that's what I'm saying. Had you taken some action on the UFC part, he violated the code of conduct or whatever you want to say he did, would that not have maybe prevented some of the heated stuff that happened this promotion?
I would, listen, we didn't, so I don't know, but I would say no. If we suspended Conor, I don't think that was going to stop or slow down or hinder the hatred between these two camps. And I'm sure these guys don't give a shit about suspensions and stuff like this. This is so much bigger than that to these guys. This is some street that's going on here. This isn't sport. This is completely different. The suspensions and whatever, none of that stuff matters.
Can I ask you a question?
And a suspension might have pissed him off even more because Khabib wanted to fight him. Habib was ready to. I mean, Khabib wanted to fight him as soon as it was possible. So me going out and suspending Conor definitely doesn't do that for him.
So the question that I have is, number one, do you think suspending Conor would have made a would have brought pause to perhaps Khabib taking action? I guess that's my first question. So we'll start with UKC. Do you think that Dana? Do you agree with Dana that taking action or sanctions against Conor would have prevented this?
As a general rule of thumb, anything Dana says, you can just be assured I'm on the other side of that. This was the ultimate privilege showing itself of, I don't know what's going to happen, so these things will just happen. Like, step up and take ownership. If you want to be in the position that you're at, then don't act like there's nothing you can do. Figure it out. Like, that is your job as the promoter. So this is street stuff, we have no way of handling it. Every other commissioner can figure it out. Why can't you, Dana White?
John?
I agree. That's literally the CEO's job, is to figure out how to regulate situations just like this. I think it would have been a great deterrent, because if anybody was paying attention to what Khabib said, what he was fighting for, he's fighting for legacy. And now if they had sat there and suspended Conor, he wouldn't have been mad. He would have been like, okay, I'll be patient. I'll wait for him. And then when he came out, he would have given the butt whooping that he got. And then had Dylan did the same thing he did before, Khabib would have thought twice and been like, if I jump over that fence, that's it for my legacy. No. That's what I think would have happened had the privilege that Conor McGregor enjoyed was stripped away from him.
And George?
I think that Dana sanctioning or doing something to Conor for the bus incident definitely would have changed the tone of what's taking place all over this event. One, you would have set the precedent that, hey, when you step out of line, you're going to get spanked, which is what Khabib would have needed to have seen in order not to go where he went. Two, if Dana had punished Conor, I'm sure that would have included some type of act of contrition where he's having to apologize to the UFC, to the other fight, all those things that we didn't get. I think he did make an apology at some point, but I don't remember that apology being towards Khabib, or you get what I'm saying?
Right.
There should have been some type of contrition forced through Dana's hand. Three, it's hypocritical of Dana in that Dana just took Tugahoff off of his next fight for this melee. So we know Dana is not beyond firing somebody for transgressing boundaries. And you couldn't have at least done something to Conor for wrecking damn near your entire card from the bus incident? It's just my thoughts.
All right, let's go on. There's two more clips. The first one is a question of whether or not Khabib will get his belt stripped.
So is it 100% certain that Khabib will not be stripped of the title after what happened tonight?
No, it's not 100%. Khabib has... The thing is, we're regulated by the Nevada State Athletic Commission or whatever state we're in, right? The Nevada State Athletic Commission is going to go after him, I'm sure, pretty hard. You know, he doesn't have to worry about me right now. He has to worry about Nevada. The governor was here tonight. The governor went running out of the building. That's not good. Governor running out of a building isn't good. He's in trouble.
So here's the thing, is that in so much as the UFC has the ability to sanction fighters who are on their roster, that a lot of the time what we see is that the people who actually levy the penalties are the athletic commissions. So I guess my question is for you guys, and then we'll start with you, George, is it really that it's because the actions that Conor took were always outside of the legal arm of the athletic commission, which is why he got away with so much, and not because of the fact that he's got golden wings?
I want to make sure I understand the question correctly. State it one more time.
So I guess the question I'm asking is, in all the incidents that we can see that happened with Conor McGregor, all of the transgressions, none of them happened under the auspices of an athletic commission, which has been given the responsibility of levying the punishments. Is it more so
according to Dana?
That clearly Dana is not levying the types of punishments that we would like to see, but is that just because of the fact that it's not happening under the control of the athletic commission and it's only at the discretion of the UFC as to whether a fighter
he's fired Tugahav already. He damn the commission. The commission didn't have anything to do with that. Commission, we know commissions don't make decisions for months, years even. So him saying, trying to place it, the commission's going to deal with that. No, this is your organization. You, like I said, you just fired one of the fighters who entered that ring. Hands down, no questions. Commission didn't have anything to do with that already. So he absolutely has all authority to act and do whatever he feels needs to be done. He's not doing it. And, of course, it's because we're granting privileges to certain people.
So, John, I'm going to ask you. You heard him say that the governor of Nevada ran out of the building when the melee ensued. The Nevada State Athletic Commission eventually rolls up to the authority of the governor. How badly do you think Khabib is going to be sanctioned for his actions?
I don't think the governor is going to be on that John McCain, I want to ban, the human cockfighting level of things, but it's not a good look. Okay. It's like what George said. I mean, this really doesn't have to come. The commission may do something, but as CEO, when two of your fighters who represent your company acts a fool, you got to put them in their place because they represent you. It's no different than if you send your children out in the world and they act up. They still represent you. Mm-hmm. So you must put them in place.
So Casey, I'm gonna kick this over to you because I heard you say, "Mm-hmm." If that child,
don't put me on this one. I didn't say, "Mm-hmm."
Oh, that was George. All right,
that was me.
I'm still coming at you
like that.
I'm still coming at you, Casey. I'm still coming at you. Here's my question for you. It's all fine and good if it's your child and all that kind of stuff, but if that child is making you money hand over fist, you really gonna put that?
Ask Papa John about that. There's a problem.
Papa John effectively cost their shareholders money,
and this will effectively cost the UFC money.
We thought that with the bus, but it didn't.
Oh, you can always find your way to market your way out of it, but I don't want to create this paradigm in which we say that, well, this happened outside of the sport itself, and so we have no recourse for this, which is not true because I, as an employee of the company that I work for, still have guidelines that reach beyond my office hours. There are certain things I cannot do online, especially because I'm in marketing, that will reflect poorly on my company, which would result in my termination. So we know this as just average workers, that our jobs can fire us for stuff that we do outside of work. Why is it that the UFC hasn't figured out that every other commission in the NFL, you can get fined, you can be forced to sit out part of the season for things that happen outside of Sunday or Thursday or Monday or whatever other days they want to tack on? You can be fined and penalized for that. The UFC taking this, I don't know approach it's a farce, like from the start.
So all I got to say is this. In as much as we want to say the NFL is the crown jewel of player punishment and player discipline, it is not. The NFL is just as guilty as playing. No. The NFL is just as guilty as playing favorites as any of the commissions. If you are the star,
that's not my point in the least bit. But my point is simply that the UFC cannot make the case that, well, this happened outside of our auspices, so we can do nothing about it. This is why I'm simply giving an example, because I'm a fan of America's team if I watch football at all. And Zeke Elliott, his fines came from not what he did in the game. His suspension didn't come from what he did in the game. It's from his conduct outside of the sport of football. So the UFC has a pathway forward to show that, yeah, this is normalized within sports, that even if you don't do it in the octagon, we can fine you. Because they've already done that on speech itself. Like, they have fined fighters for using homophobic slurs. But now all of a sudden it's Conor, and there's nothing we can do.
So, because it's Conor. Because Conor is the meal ticket.
Let's talk about Colby Covington. He's not making nearly as much money as he should for the promotion, and yet carte blanche to still say ridiculous things.
But okay, so I don't know that we can. Conor McGregor has gone well beyond saying ridiculous things. I think we've established that, right? But Conor McGregor is. So if Conor was just saying ridiculous things, I feel you could have a comparison between the two. But Conor is a meteoric sensation in the UFC, such to the level that every one of his pay-per-views is at the record-breaking level of the UFC. And so to say, well, I'm going to put a sanction on him, and I'm going to try to stop that. That is not within the best. That was not in the best interest of the UFC.
It is absolutely in the best interest of the UFC, because you're going to make these short hits on, hey, we're going to make money here, but eventually you've ruined your brand.
Let me know when they do that, because Conor has been doing this for a long time. I mean,
and how many other fighters do they have that are making that kind of money? So you don't build your business on a one-off. You build it on repeatable, recurring revenue. You don't have that.
I understand
this
that.
Is economics.
I understand that, but they have built their business on one guy. That's what they've done.
That's problematic.
So you cannot now. You can't. It's problematic. But until it starts to hurt them, and what I'm saying is it doesn't hurt them, and they continue to find a way to your point, market their way out of it, then the status quo is working. There is no reason to change until some point where Conor McGregor goes so far that it actually damages the brand.
And this is why Dana White is a terrible president, CEO, wherever he is now, because this is very short-sighted marketing. And if you want to look at the lasting legacy of your organization, and not even legacy, but shareholder value, you haven't built up enough crop that can follow in Conor's footsteps. Like, you either make this WWE or you clean it up and make it a real sport.
Well, I don't think anyone disagrees with you, but what we're talking about is whether or not Conor makes so much money for the UFC that he is above the law. And the answer is yes.
You're creating a repeatable business. This is not a repeatable business. Like, if Dana White or if, let's just put on Dana White because he's the face right now. If Dana White is working for me, I fire him because he's clearly a terrible strategist. Like, congratulations, we've made money this quarter. What do you have for me in 5 years?
An ESPN contract worth like $2 billion. There you go.
Yeah.
I'm going to go on vacation. President's Club. Thank you.
Do you think that that's because of Conor?
Yes.
So if we have more fighters who follow this Conor McGregor style, we're going to have a sustainable business for 5 years.
Who knows? I don't know. But you're going to tell me that, okay, so is it because of Conor? Absolutely. Every one of the shows that Conor is on sells out. Number two, you can credit some of that to Ronda Rousey and what she was able to do for the sport as well. But she is gone. She is long gone. So the only thing you got right now is Conor McGregor. And
who's aging out and losing fights. But okay.
Aging out. Even in his even in Conor's losses, he got more fans over this past weekend in a loss than most of the fighters on the card got in a win. I mean, maybe Derek Lewis got some more fans, but I doubt it. So no, you cannot create this dismal picture of what Conor McGregor means to the UFC when all I've seen is even when he wins or when he loses, the UFC's brand gets bigger, gets in more mouths, more people attend, and if they scheduled a Khabib Nurmagomedov Conor McGregor 2, it might do 5 million pay-per-view sales. And that's indisputable. And that is why ESPN, which had basically discarded the UFC 10 years ago, they laughed at the fact that UFC wanted to be on ESPN, which is why they ended up on Spike, which is why The Ultimate Fighter was the show on Spike, and now ESPN paid multiple billions of dollars to get the UFC back. That is a direct result of the brand that Dana White has put into the market, and that has everything to do with Conor McGregor. I mean, that's it.
And it was devalued this weekend as a result.
What was devalued?
If I was ESPN, the product. When you think about it like this, does ESPN want that product being shown?
Well, consider this.
I'm sorry, but you don't. You can't say that it's been devalued by ESPN. We don't have any evidence of that. Does
I'm
ESPN
saying
want that on their shows? No, they don't. They want to keep it to pay-per-view, where that is where I mean, that's where you want to have it. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen on pay-per-view. But you don't want that on your...
If I'm ESPN, I don't want that on my pay-per-view is what I'm saying.
But
that has always been the criticism of MMA as a whole, is that, hey, this is a bloody sport. This is not a sport. And some people would actually go so far as to say that. They don't recognize the skill that it takes to accomplish these things, and they look at it as just barbarian cage fighting. And which was why people like ESPN didn't jump on those contracts 20 years ago.
Well,
and here we are now, 2018, and a melee like this breaks out right after the UFC has just been sold for how many billion? ESPN jumps in on the contract. It's like all the chickens are coming home to roost. This is why we didn't do this from the beginning, and now we're stuck in this contract.
I mean, you're speaking for ESPN here. I don't know that ESPN has said anything like that.
If anything, this is what they want. Okay, the ESPN, they got what they want this weekend. They want those wild antics. They want the same stuff that happened in boxing to happen in that ring. Okay, while we're looking at it as from a moral standpoint, as you know, we want honorable warriors in that ring, fighting and showing the spirit of martial arts. We have two of them, two fine warriors, in Daniel Cormier and DJ, and then Demetrius Johnson. Okay, how much marketing are they getting? Okay, we have look at what I consider the pound for pound fighter in Demetrius Johnson, a perfect man that just now lost on a split decision that really he won. Okay, we have Daniel Cormier, who is the second double champ, and he is about to go out on a high road, even though he lost to a juiced out warrior. Okay, and these guys are clean. Like I said, neither one of these guys has ever been. Yeah, there you go. Neither one of these warriors have ever been popped for anything wrong. They live clean lives, and yet the UFC will not market them to their full potential. Those are the superstars. Okay.
Maybe part of the issue is we're talking shareholder value. Comes up to the point that I was making before. Is in the past the promotion did the work. They promoted. That's why they were called fight promoters. And now we've moved into a position where we're making fighters be their own brand ambassadors rather than the UFC promoting fights, because there really is no reason why the UFC can't invest and figure out a strategy to make those two fighters household names who are loved. There's no reason that you can't get Woodley to be more popular instead of making them do their own promotions. Like, that is your job, UFC, to do it. So this argument that Conor the outlier is great is really just a slap in the face at the UFC saying, do your job. So it comes down to the promotion needing to do their job. Like, Conor isn't great. He's a great marketer.
Okay, so all I got to say is the two things. One, and then we'll play the final clip. Conor McGregor is a great marketer, and so because he is a great marketer, then the UFC has something to work with. They have something to work with Conor.
No, they don't, because Conor is making his own brand.
But he's making his own brand, and so therefore they can latch onto that and amplify that. That the UFC isn't in the business of creating; they amplify. And so when you think about someone like Daniel Cormier, or you think about someone like Demetrius Johnson, I mean, these are two guys that are near and dear to my heart, and you know that.
Mm-hmm.
But they aren't doing an effective job of marketing themselves in a way that the UFC is interested in amplifying. I mean, that's the way it is. I mean, these are guys who are the honorable warriors. These are the guys that that are about respect. And the fact is that is something that we can look at our own society in the United States, and when it comes to values of things like respect, when it comes to things like honorability and honesty and truth and all of these things that we say are our core values, it's not what we want to hear at the end of the day. We want that bravado. We want that in your face, I am the greatest, I am number one, and we are the best. That is what we want to see, and that is what Conor excels at. That is what the UFC amplifies, and unfortunately, even though this melee happened, the fact is that this is the strategy that they've been employing since Conor McGregor got to the UFC, and if you look at where they were when he arrived and where they are now, it has done nothing but accelerated the growth of the sport worldwide. So you can't say that this is a bad strategy when it's working, and it has been working for at least the 5 years that Conor has been in the sport, if he hasn't been in there longer. And they're even in this melee. The fact is that when I walked into work this morning, everybody wanted to talk about Conor McGregor and Khabib Nurmagomedov. So
I can say that. Will say that, and I will also still say that it is a short-sighted marketing thing that will not pay off, which is why we have Mac Life Productions doing its work and getting paid by the UFC. It's why Conor McGregor is becoming his own entity within the UFC and trying to get an ownership stake. What he is doing is building his brand, and congratulations, it's not a sustainable model. I mean, we're still talking economics, we're still talking business, and as much as we want to market our way out of this, those two things don't change.
So, first of all, I don't know that you're correct in the fact that the UFC is paying for the Mac Life, because Conor McGregor actually invests in the Mac Life. That is his own media.
How do you think that the Mac Life Productions gets used by the UFC? Do you think they give that to the UFC for free?
What do you mean? Because the UFC has their own crews.
Yeah.
What footage? This is a digression, but what footage is being used from the Mac Life that the UFC isn't getting? That UFC is getting?
They use it for their promotional efforts. You do realize that the UFC doesn't do all of those. What's that stuff that they do with the fighters where they go around with them during the fight camp for the week and they show that stuff?
Are you talking about the embedded series?
Embedded? Embedded gets their material from, and has been for a long time, getting that from the Mac Life crew, right?
No, I'm researching that right now.
So let's let every fighter get their own marketing production company, and then the UFC figure it out from there. This is poor business. You don't let people take away from your core business, which is marketing. You are a promotion. this is bad business. Like point blank. Like, I don't know how we keep missing the fact that the UFC is giving up part of their responsibility to the fighters and assuming that this business model works.
We will have to address this on a later episode. I mean, I'm just gonna say that I don't have this is an interesting twist to the story. I don't have enough information to be able to dispute this. So, I have to do research here. All right, let's go on to the final clip. And this one, Casey, I know is near and dear to your heart, but this one is about, the trash talk in the UFC. What we have really dug in deep. We've talked a lot about. Here we go.
Are you going to reevaluate the discussions between the fighters, because some of these guys can handle it? I mean, Conor's a showman. He's doing his thing. Khabib doesn't seem as though he was experienced, and he kind of took the ethnic, religious, offensive comments to heart that could have fueled the brawl today. I'm just wondering, are you going to take another look at just how these quote-unquote mean words affect the fighters as they lead up to the events?
First of all, it had nothing to do with Conor. You didn't see him run and try to attack Conor after the fight. It was a cornerman, a guy who had nothing to do with the fight. He wasn't involved in the fight. He's a cornerman. He was the guy that that Khabib went after. He was yelling stuff through the cage at Khabib, But that's the fight business. That's sports. There's trash talking in every sport, They do it in the NBA. They do it in the NFL. They do it in baseball. It's part of the game. It's just, that's never going to change here. You're never going to tell somebody what they can or can't say. That's never going to change.
So what we would call this is the potential, what about, the whataboutisms, where we're talking about after this melee and after what was said and how it contributed to whatever action took place after the fight. Should we reevaluate where we draw the lines and codify them within the standards of behavior for our athletes? Should we draw lines that things are off limits based upon what has happened today? And Dana responds with what about the NFL? What about the NBA? What about baseball? All these other things. So I want to get your reactions, and then we'll start to wrap this thing up. I'll start with you, George, and then we'll go to John and then Casey.
I'm not against creating some guidelines and things like that. I mean, most of your professional sports organizations have something in place. The NFL has the no spiking rule. There's certain things that they say players can and cannot do because it affects the brand, or so they believe. And I think the UFC should be no different when it comes to this. There are certain things that we can do to curb situations like this from ever happening. And don't get me wrong, I believe the UFC took great precautions to try to prevent what had actually happened. So there's no ultimate fail-safe for everything. You can't plan for every contingency. But I think this is something they can do to stave off occurrences like this.
John?
I think that you have to be personally responsible for the things you say. All right. With that said, they were both adults. They should know how far to go and when it has gone too far. I don't think that, should the UFC put guidelines on what you can and cannot say? No. All right, you got to be responsible for what you say and what happens next. Now, do I believe that if anything goes out of control, should there be repercussions? Yes, I absolutely believe in that, and it should happen. There should be some punishment going all the way around, because you should know as an adult how far to go. And if you don't know where to go, guess what? Go there, and we'll show you where you're at. Take the suspension. We'll take some money out your pocketbook, and we'll see how you're acting afterwards.
Casey?
I I have long believed that respect is one of the core values that should go hand in hand with martial arts as a whole. And I think that these are core values that we say as Americans are part of who we are, that we value people and we value each other. And I think that as we've kind of moved away from that as a society, our sports and the way we're entertained have reflected our new core values. So I don't know that the UFC can run ahead of the values of the broader culture at large. So in a very contrary sense to what I actually believe, I will say that the UFC will probably be okay just doing their own thing and not holding people accountable, because as a society, we're still conducting this experiment on how much freedom is too much freedom, while at the same time restricting certain groups of people. So what Conor and a couple other fighters of his ilk represent is a ruling class that has enough money to define a set of laws for themselves, whereas other fighters who cannot organize and have been blocked in their organization efforts will forever remain at the bottom of the pile, not get the marketing money, and not have the ability to advance their careers, all because they're playing by a different set of rules, because one guy found a way to game the system early, and the paradigm is forever shifted.
All right, there you have it. Guys, let's go ahead and wrap this up. You know, I think that we have looked at this from all angles. If ever this was a complete rundown of everything that led up to this event, analysis of why or why not this should happen, and whether or not we should be taking actions for this from this happening again. I want to thank you for doing this extra long episode of Combat Sports Talk as we go through this. Let's go with just last words. I'm gonna start with you. I'm gonna start with you, John, and then go to George, and then Casey. I'll let you give the last word.
On my Instagram page, I have put two things up. One is the melee that happened from a top-down angle, where you can see just about everything that happened. The second thing I put up there on my Instagram page is what happened when Khabib went back home with the UFC belt. Craziest 4 minutes and 20 seconds that you'll ever see.
All right, George.
That sitting at Austin Avenue tonight, watching the melee, I really became concerned for this sport. It hurt me as a fighter, because I was disappointed in the behavior that I saw taking place, and I know how hard some of us have fought to elevate this sport in the minds of people who think this sport is barbaric and for degenerates. You know, you've got a lot of intelligent people involved and who fight. And it was a disservice to us as fighters for that to take place. And I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, this is an inflection point in which the UFC has an opportunity to define who they will be for the next 10 years. I don't believe that Dana White nor other management is in a place where they are mature enough to take the high road, to understand the influence that they now wield within culture. And because of that, I think that we will see the rise of more Colby Covingtons, who are a poor recreation of Conor McGregor. I think one of the biggest travesties that you can have is success too early. And I think in this way, what they've shown is that they found one good thing and they can play this one tune over and over, and have yet to expand on what was it about Conor that made it special that we can replicate. Instead, they're going to They're going to beat this dead horse, which is Conor. And if Conor can't put together some wins, it's going to die. So this melee as a whole, which could have served as a beautiful teaching moment, it really just will continue to shine as this example of when we let ourselves go to our base instincts.
There you have it. All right, so let's wrap this up. Follow us on social media. On Twitter, I am at CST Ryan.
And so am I.
All right, John, you're at
Keys to Victory, and that's Keys with an EF.
All right, George.
You can find me on Instagram and Facebook, Geo Stallworth, GeoStallWorth, also known as G Money.
All right. On Instagram, I am at Combat Sports Talk. John?
Same, Keys to Victory.
With the ES, right?
That's correct, with the ES.
And KC?
I'm going to go with Push, Pull, Pray this time.
All right. Not obfuscated.
KC, we don't get the Tinder profile?
Oh, yeah. You can catch me on Tinder. On Bumble. Sometimes you can catch me on Hinge or Coffee Meets Bagel.
Right?
Oh, wow. We're doing this. This is actually happening.
We left that one off.
No, but I mean, I'll give it a pause.
All right. We now have merchandise on Amazon, and just search for Combat Sports Talk. And we have a section for live events. If you enjoyed hearing George Stallworth tonight, you got to hear him talk about the fights while we're watching the fights. It is an amazing thing. He calls it, and then the commentators, Joe Rogan or Dominic Cruz or Daniel Cormier, they agree with him directly after he says it. It's like they have an earpiece with him. So you got to check out our live events. It is amazing to hear this man analyze the fights.
You're too gracious, but thank you.
All right. Let's go ahead and close this out. Our theme music is composed by Scott McCurry at scottdeancountry.com. Casey Onyebuchi produced our lead-ins. I want to thank you for joining us for another edition of Combat Sports Talk. For Casey Onyebuchi, for John Keys and George Stallworth, I'm Ryan Smith, reminding you to keep your hands up, your chin tucked, and throw balls.